And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder Network. Param?
No matter how many times I set this up before the stream, as soon as we make the stream live, it messes up the camera positions.
Okay, you want to take a minute to just do that now, and then we'll...
Yeah, I'm working on it right now. Just keep going.
We're
floating. We're floating.
We're on a spaceship, guys.
Hi, Night Fox.
Welcome to episode 203 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News Reviews and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
Part 3 of the Road to Pathfinder Second Edition brings us to the last designer on the design team and a developer for Pathfinder Society, and we'll be explaining why we brought that particular pair on, that particular couple, we could say. Mm-hmm. We've got designer Mark Seifter. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
And developer Linda Zayas-Palmer. Sorry, Linda.
No worries. Hi. Good to see everybody.
I think people should by now recognize you as the people behind Arcane Mark.
I would hope so, and I'm seeing at least 4 people from Arcane Mark here putting in the Arcane Mark emojis. So welcome to everyone from Arcane Mark. If you do not know about Arcane Mark, it is our podcast that is on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 Pacific, 1 hour after No Direction would be if it was on those days. And it is at 10 Pacific a.m. On Saturday. And Thursday is our interview. Tuesday and Saturday our variety show chosen by you, the viewers, with random polls. And I will link that because it's twitch.tv/Mark Seifter.
Oh no,
I'm on night
because you are not a moderator of our Twitch channel.
Okay, I will not link to it. Nightbot has said that I'm very naughty.
We will throw a link up to it in our Discord. Do not worry.
There you go. I've just linked it on Twitch.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So, Arcane Mark has this incredible release schedule. Is this just because 2E's coming out and you've got a lot to talk about, or is this just what you're going to be releasing?
I mean, that's just generally what we're doing.
We haven't actually talked about 2E that much yet specifically because we're not sort of working officially with Paizo. This is more of the thing that we do in our free time for fun. So most of it's been a lot of talking about GMing, a lot of talking about making adventures, our experience with adventures, and just a grab bag of a variety of things. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's good because we have you on here to talk about 2E, so it's good to know that there isn't, that we're not going to be retreading ground. People are actually probably very excited to hear more from both of you about what's going on with 2E.
We don't break news on Arcane Mark that is just brand new news unless our guests say something during the interviews. Instead, we do deep analysis. We talk about how things work. We give behind-the-scenes looks, but not like the books that aren't out yet that nobody has.
Accidental news. I like it. So, Mark, the guest that we've asked, the question that we've asked all the designers is 2E's coming out. What's got your DNA in it? What are you super excited about?
What's got my DNA in it, or
what's got your fingerprints on it? What have you contributed to?
There are some things that I'm really excited about that were just totally somebody else's idea. So, but my DNA, I guess, in a way that sounds less sketchy than this, is sort of like all over this book.
So the team didn't do the Kiss Comics things where you put your blood in the ink and then it got printed on all the covers?
No, that is that was a possibility, but then when China told us how much of our blood would be required, we realized that there was not enough blood. So no, we didn't do that. But basically, I worked on just a huge number of things all across the book. It's part of the higher up you are in any organization. This is true whether you work in RPGs or just in making paper like The Office. The more you're doing managerial tasks and having to go to meetings and work out high level things. So what that means is that on the ground, Jason is only available for so much of the actual book writing. So that means that between Logan and myself, because Steven, as the senior designer, did maps and wrangled freelancers, all sorts of other things. Between Logan and myself, we did a huge percentage of the ground level writing of this book.
Now, that's similar to Steven's answer, but when we asked Logan, he was like, "Oh, I did the monk." He was very specific and confident that if anyone asked, the monk was Logan's.
Okay, well, but he did more than the monk. But I guess he's very proud of the monk. But no, yeah, I did all sorts of stuff all throughout the book, and it's hard to just pin down the topic of what did Mark do, because also everything was iterated, right? So, like, yes, Logan did the first design of the monk. He was the first one who wrote anything that was in it. But I was the one who put the last things that are in the monk for the book, for example. That certainly was way less of an influence on the monk than Logan was. And Steven, in between, looked at the monk as well. So I believe, at least for one of the many passes we did earlier in the process. So there are hardly any... I think there is nothing in this book that wasn't looked at by at least 2 different designers, at least twice, for a total of 4 different passes. And usually, a lot of them were everyone except Jason. And then Jason did his own executive pass. We brought everything home after the fact and looked through, and he found all the what did you guys missed this here, and we got those in. Plus, there's some that Jason actually flat out was able to do despite his like admittedly ridiculously packed schedule of stuff. Like everyone here, I hope knows that Jason was just went down to Hollywood and filmed for multiple days this Geek and Sundry thing.
Wasn't he doing 24 hours of content over the course of 3 days?
And it was 12-hour shoots each day,
yes.
Something like that. It was a lot.
Yeah.
And Jason...
That's most of the hours.
Yes, that is most of the hours.
Jason has been pulling so much work to get all this stuff for you guys, but because he's up high, he's the director of game design, that's work that's meetings, figuring out strategy, figuring out all sorts of stuff for how to market it, and the writing is more so the rest of us.
Yeah, being on our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But everybody's on your podcast, so I guess Jason was on twice.
Yeah, and he also had committed to doing this one too, but we changed the direction. Partially to give him a break. Not that we didn't appreciate all the time he was giving us. We felt selfish.
Yeah.
Well, it's really great to get a chance to be on here.
Right. It's like your other guest and Jason.
Yes. Now, Linda, from what we've heard from the PaizoCon seminars is that the collaboration between the design team and the developers has changed this year. So from your point of view, how would you define the relationship for the second edition collaboration at Paizo?
Yeah, so we've added another pass to a lot of the products, and this includes Pathfinder Society scenarios, where we're also having a designer. In this case, Mark is the liaison to the organized play team, doing a pass on the scenarios. So Mark looked at and gave really crucial feedback for all of the scenarios that are coming out at Gen Con. And this has been a great way not only to make sure that the rules in the scenarios are tight and coherent, but also for all of us as developers to have a chance to train with the new system and to get that extra.
In fact, I'm not sure, but I feel like 5 years ago when I was on the show for hey, who's the new guy? One of the things I was telling you guys on the show was that hey, I'm sitting in on these meetings with Pathfinder Society that I've been invited to, just sort of to hang out and give some perspective because of the fact that I was a 5-star GM before I was hired. Mm-hmm. And that sort of concept of having someone do that, and I became that was just randomly sitting. Then that became the design liaison for organized play, which was the only design liaison. And Paizo has moved to the point that people liked seeing the sort of the way that worked out. And now we have design liaisons or design leads for, as we put in the on the title pages, for every product, like Linda said. So it's sort of started just from randomly stuff. The people that are Mark, you could sit on this meeting if you want. And I wasn't on the calendar. I had to know when it was and get up and go and sit in on it. But we've now moved to using that for the entire process. And as I said all those years ago, it was my goal to have there be more interaction and all the teams working together. And I think we're doing great on that now.
So now it's funny when I was when it was brought up on the seminars that I was talking about, I had assumed it was kind of the other way around, that the PFS team was kind of like, make sure you do these things or don't do these things because that would break PFS and we'd have to ban that option. I wasn't expecting it to be the designers influencing the adventures and I guess the subsystems and how.
There's a lot of back and forth, but as it turns out, like what we did before was a little myopic. We only had one person usually looking at everything, and the editors to help with the language. And maybe if you're lucky, they would catch something that wasn't their job, because our editors are freaking awesome and they know a lot about things even beyond what we asked them to do. But as it turns out, having both a designer and a developer on a project already decreases the chance that you have something that causes a problem for organized play, as compared to not having both of those. Because some of the same things that organized play would find during their reviews after the fact are the same things the design lead might find checking the project.
Sorry, I'm just scanning our live Twitch audience for questions. Param, why don't you remind people how they can get questions to us during our episodes?
Indeed. No Direction, as always, is filmed in front of a live Twitch audience every Wednesday. Well, every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you've got any questions you want to ask us or our guests, go ahead and do so in chat. But do put the word question in front of your question so that we can pick them out from the rather busy chat right now. You all are hopping at the moment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and we will collect those as we can and ask them and try to get some of them interjected throughout the episode.
We'll start with this Magnus Prime 27 question. Apparently it was asked on Arcane Mark, but I mean, can I avoid asking things that were on Arcane Mark? There's just so much Arcane Mark.
You totally can, and I'm happy to re-answer things as needed.
Wait, he asked if he could avoid it, and then you said he totally could avoid it.
Yeah.
But he's trying not to avoid it.
Whatever. I'm happy to answer questions, okay?
Magnus Prime 27's question is, when or is there going to be a field guide for society?
So I guess that depends upon exactly what you mean by a field guide for society. If you're talking about the overall guide, the one for organized play that talks about, hey, how do you build a character? What does it need to play in organized play? Yes, there's going to be one of those. It's going to be coming out in a wiki format, and we're going to have it out before Gen Con as soon as we possibly can. That's one of the things that we're working heavily on now, that we are now that we're just wrapping up those last little tiny finishing touches on all the Gen Con. And if you're talking about something more generically, like the Pathfinder Society Field Guide product, is there going to be a product that focuses around Pathfinder Society? We haven't announced anything to that effect, but that does certainly seem like it could be an interesting idea to take back and kick around.
Although at the very least, the Lost Omens character guide will have a section on the Pathfinder Society as one of the big organizations that have their own section.
Nice.
That's not a whole book. It's not a whole giant 128-page plus hardcover like if all of Lost Omens character guide was on Pathfinder Society, but it is a section and it should have some fun stuff.
Now, before we deep dive into the mini society questions we are going to have, because I have so many. I love society. I think it is one of the best things that Pathfinder has going for it, and it's definitely one of its best ambassadors. But before I deep dive into that, Mark, you surprised us in your early interviews with us with just a complete grasp of mathematics and game design and how those two merge together. When you all were working on second edition, obviously the math and the balance has changed. Can you explain what were some of the changes you did in that direction and why you did them?
You're talking specifically here about mathematical changes from Pathfinder First Edition, or mathematical changes from the playtest, both or neither?
From First Edition.
Okay, so I would say one of the most key fundamental mathematical changes from First Edition was the fact that in Pathfinder First Edition, all sorts of numbers that are on your character's sheet that are vital statistics for you, such as your AC, your reflex save, your fortitude save, your skills, your attack bonus, they progressed, or the DCs of your spells, they progressed all at different rates and using strange fractional formulas that could cause you, for no fault of your own, to fall behind by 6 points in your saving throws at the maximum level, by 10 points in your attack bonus at the maximum levels, and that's before taking into account what your ability scores were. Just even assuming that for some reason your rogue had the same wisdom as a cleric, because you're like, I'm not going to fail any will saves. I've taken the cleric's wisdom and tanked the rest of my rogue. You're still 6 points behind the cleric will save just because of something that happened as soon as you started the game. And because of those features, it threw a lot of things in the game to a situation where, when compounded with the fact that, of course, your rogue doesn't have that much wisdom, you would wind up with an encounter that the rogue automatically failed, or pretty much had to roll a 20 or close to it, and the cleric was like, well, whatever, this is so easy, I just need a 3 to pass. And so because of that, the overall move to make the fundamental measure of level by level progression in something that your class is good enough at that you actually progress in it to be 1-for-1 no matter what. First of all, you don't have to memorize a weird chart every time. And second of all, that means that when we do make a gap on purpose and we say, hey, yeah, no, you are 8 better. You're 8 better at this skill than this other person is. That we know we did that on purpose. And you made a lot of decisions before you got to the point where you were 8 better. And they made a lot of decisions to say, I don't care about this skill. Rather than just like, you wrote rogue on your character sheet, and now at high levels you're guaranteed you're going to be 6 worse. Not counting anything else.
And if I could address that from another direction, particularly as it pertains to the numerical design and organized play, one of the things that, as an organized play developer, I had a very big issue with in first edition is the discrepancy between the player who is being good at the thing because of what they took out of the core rulebook, and the player that's being good at the thing because of how many bonuses they found from all these different sources. So you can come up with this issue where the math would allow certain people to stack up to ridiculously high bonuses, but then the scenarios, the encounters, things wouldn't really be challenging for them. And then, like, what does that mean for the other people who still tried, but they didn't have like all these same sources? So it creates these large gaps in the numbers that that introduce a lot of challenges.
And that's beyond the core mechanic, but that's incredibly true. Which is, it's not a problem if the wizard knows. In fact, it's a problem if the wizard doesn't know more about Arcana than the fighter who barely dabbled into it, right? But it actually is a really big problem if the Oracle of Lore, it has 40 higher Arcana than the wizard, and the Oracle of Lore in Pathfinder First Edition has 40 higher with 1 rank in it. The wizard maxed the ranks, has all the intelligence, and took skill focus. And the Oracle of Lore is like, oh, don't worry about it, dude. I got plus 20 and a stacking plus 10 from this other thing that I have, and I can re-roll it too. And that's 30, and then I use my charisma, so I just completely annihilated all the decisions you made because I've got this 30 that you're not going to have. So making sure that your decisions are meaningful, and that, more importantly, it's specialists can shine, specialists can be special, but you can't have this uber specialist that is so much more powerful that your specialist is sitting down and you're terrible, because the uber specialist just makes it so you might as well not play, because you're just risking the party failing when they could succeed by letting the uber specialist do it.
Yeah, not everyone has access to, well, I guess they all have access, but not everyone knows about the Pathfinder Get X to Y guide.
Oh,
And
that is
even
such
if
a
you
great
don't
book
have that, like,
or PDF.
to make a lore oracle that throws everyone else out of the balance, or investigator, all it takes for the lore oracle is you just take the 2 obvious oracle abilities. For the investigator, not much. Like, slap empiricist on it and take a lot of intelligence. Maybe a level in the mind chemist alchemist, but that starts getting more complicated, so you double your intelligence. But even without complicated combos, it's just plug and play of the lore oracle. Sometimes this happened, and just the optimization gap between a group that was really, really knew all the tricks, or even just knew some of the tricks, some of the nastiest tricks, and the group that didn't, was so high that you could run into situations where people were playing a completely different game. And that's what would lead you to situations where, say, hey, the Oracle of Lore is just plug and play and you're beating everyone at lore. Or if you've ever seen people say the Zen Archer is just the most overpowered archer, it's not. There are archers that are even more overpowered than the Zen Archer, but it's plug and play. you're forced to take all the good archery things because they're the only things you're allowed to take with your bonus feats, and the flurry replaces the other ones that you can't take. Whereas if you try to build one of the other really powerful archers, you need to know what you're doing, and you need to spend all your feats on those things, and you might want to take something else, and that weakens you. So we want to not have that situation. If we want you to be super powerful, we want it. We don't want like the Zen Archer to automatically be strong, and all the other ones are weird situations where you go wandering around among options, you can't find your way. We want to know what the level is, maybe more like the Zen Archer, but except if you think the Zen Archer is doing too much, more like that except for to a reasonable amount, and then all the classes can do that and can be awesome and can shine on their own. Although I think we've moved a little bit away from math here and more talked about a combination of how math intersects with the philosophy of decision. And
we've gotten a lot of questions from chat, so I'm trying to keep track of some. This is a really interesting one to me. Kefaldspeiler. Probably not how you pronounce that. Are there new cool features coming to PFS that could not be done in first edition?
Well, Linda, anything that couldn't have been done?
Well, I think we could get into this a bit more when we talk about actually building a character. But I will say for now, the fact that you are, as just revealed in a blog today, the fact that you are training, whether you focus more with the spells, the school of spells within the Pathfinder Society, the swords or the scrolls, or whether you were a field agent, is going to have an impact on extra bonus resources that are available to your character.
So, but that could have been done in first edition.
That could have hypothetically been done. Are you talking more about the character building aspect or the adventure?
I don't know.
Creation?
I don't want to make it a trick question, so I'll give one thing that couldn't have been done in Pathfinder First Edition, and there are more.
Mm-hmm.
Downtime and very specifically crafting your own items. Pathfinder First Edition had a crafting system that was so fundamentally broken that if you gave people enough time, which Pathfinder Society First Edition gave you as much time as you needed, they doubled all of their money. There was no way you were going to fail the check. It was way too easy, and you could take 10. So you doubled all of your money for no cost, no risk. Because we do not have that crafting system now where it's like, oh, yeah, did you want to craft a magic item? You are a god, even though you're level 3. Oh, are you a level 20 blacksmith trying to make ends meet? No, sorry, you make like 1/50th of the same money. Now that it all is the same, Pathfinder Society could give you a number of downtime days, and now you can do crafting. You can do whatever you want. And there are a lot of, I don't want to downplay how awesome the spell swords are and some of the other changes. Those are changes that are awesome because of the brilliance of Linda, John Compton, and Mike Sayer, and Tanya, and Thirsty, who came up with those ideas. And I helped a little bit, but mostly them. This is an example of where it works better because of the downtime, where it works better because of the Pathfinder Second Edition.
But that was great because you came to us and you asked, what he specifically came to us and asked, what would it take for a crafting system to be okay for PFF? And then we had that conversation, and then very much so. We have the downtime can be used for crafting, but there's also a lot of other cool uses about for downtime that are in the core book as well, such as there's the retraining. There's all sorts of stuff in there that we can play with, and it'll be fun to come up with more extra downtime activities and boons and rewards and things like that. So it's super flexible as a way to model what your character is doing in between sessions.
What I really like about the scrolls, spells, swords, and field agents is that as someone coming from first edition, I know what all those things are. I know exactly why they're relevant to Pathfinder Society, like the in-world organization. So it's cool that while a lot of things are changing, that you're like focusing on the lore that is familiar, so that I've got something to cling to, and it definitely still feels like Pathfinder Society.
Yeah, and with the factions, for example, we're changing up all of the factions that are available, but all of the faction leaders are with the exception of one of the minor faction leaders, are characters that you've seen before, and we very much selected based on what are some of those characters that people have the most engagement with, and also what are some of those characters who we have great hooks stories.
My favorite part about the inclusion of Skull Spell Swords is just my characters. I would always decide which, if any of the masters that I trained with, and which of those groups I trained with, and so we would go and meet, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I trained with Marcus Farabellis and I'm of the swords. What about you? And everyone would be like, And now that you get a mechanical hook to it, they're going to know the answer to that question. It's like, oh yeah, I trained with Serena Wester. She taught me some extra spells and she's given me this scroll. Or something like that.
Yeah, and one of the fundamental goals of year one and how we're structuring things is to get more down into the fundamentals of what does it mean to be a Pathfinder Society agent and what is the Pathfinder Society's role in the world. Because very much with the many seasons that have come before, we in some ways got into an escalating race of, okay, but now we're going to go back in time. And now we're going to go into outer space, and now we're going to go to the planes, and now we're going to like have all these things going on with all of our factions, and now all these things are happening. So, in sort of the race to be more awesome than previously had been awesome, we did kind of get off of the track of, so what is this really about again? And that's one thing that makes it not as approachable for new folks. We really want to make sure that we have this shared and solid foundation that everyone's coming in on.
Steve Mumbo asks, how does spells, scrolls, swords interact with the factions?
How do spell, scrolls, swords interact with factions? So that's a great question. They are two separate things. So the spell, scrolls, swords, or field agent represents your training that you had in the Pathfinder Society. So the spells, scrolls, and swords are sort of three sub-schools within the Pathfinder Society, with the spells representing magical knowledge, the scrolls representing study and lore, and the swords representing, well, your martial characters, your ability to shoot things or beat things up or whatever have you. So every agent goes through some training, and we generally assume that there's one school that they're going to gravitate a little bit more towards, and then that represents that training that they had, and it also gives the player some extra benefits that they can take into each section, a free consumable item every session. And then the field agent is somebody who, they didn't go through the Pathfinder Society training. They were just independently awesome. So the Pathfinder Society came to them and said, yeah, you know what? You're cool. You want to join us? So they don't have all the personal connections within the society to give them free stuff. But that also means that they have fewer tasks that they need to take care of. So with the established Pathfinder agents who went through the training, maybe they have other things they now need to take care of back in the Grand Lodge, things like that take up their time. Whereas the field agents have more time to themselves, so they get extra downtime. So that's the scroll, spell, swords, field agent represents how you join the society. Whereas the factions
can I confirm, if you do not have a network of friends, you have more downtime. But
for real though, the factions represent why do you Pathfind in the first place. So for example, to start with one of the factions, we have the Horizon Hunters. The Horizon Hunters is all about people who want to explore new places. They want to be the first to see things. They want to be the best person to see things. They want to look awesome doing it, whether that's, gaming fans who admire their work, or like, Pathfinders who are looking at them, the trainees like, oh, I want to be like you someday. Or whether that's getting their name published in the Pathfinder Chronicles. They want to explore and they want to look awesome doing it. So that's different from, what did you study when you were in school, essentially.
We've got a couple of mechanical questions we're going to go for next.
Oh boy.
Biscuit Goat and Undead 3 Ed Fish had very specific questions that are also very similar. One wants to know what Sorcerer Bloodlines are there and what spell lists do they have, and the other wants to know about the Wizard Thesis feature.
Oh, those are sort of parallel, but not necessarily similar. So the Sorcerer Bloodline options are, let's see.
Mark is consulting his handy copy of the Koroba.
Yes, the Sorcerer Bloodline options are aberrant. Something speaks to you from beyond the stars or below the earth, ancient and unknowable. This alien influence presses against your mind. Occult. Angelic. One of your forebears hailed from a celestial realm, or your ancestors' devotion led to their lineage being blessed. Religion. Not religion, divine. Demons, demonic. Demons debase all they touch. One of your ancestors fell victim to their corruption, and you are burdened by that sin. Divine. Diabolic. Devils are evil with a silver tongue, and one of your ancestors dallied in darkness or made an infernal pact. Divine. Draconic. The blood of dragons flows through your veins. These beasts are both fearsome in combat and skilled at magic. Arcane. Elemental. A genie ancestor or some other elemental influence has imbued your blood with primal fury, affecting how the bloodline spells and granted spells marked with an asterisk, as well as your blood magic function. So we said the primal energy, so therefore it's called. No, just kidding. Primal. Fae. Fae whimsy or a tryst in a moonlit grove put the bewitching magic of the first world into your family's bloodline. Primal. Hag. A hag long ago cursed your family, or you are a descendant of a hag or changeling, and their accursed corruption infests your blood and soul. Occult. Imperial. One of your ancestors is a mortal who mastered magic. Such magical blood can remain latent for generations, but in you it manifested in full. Arcane. And finally, undead. The touch of undeath runs through your blood. Your family tree might contain powerful undead like a vampire, or perhaps you died and returned a bit different. Divine. So those are all of the bloodlines that are in the book. So the wizard thesis feature is sort of something that we came to because in the surveys, the wizard was listed as being the second most powerful class by a lot after the cleric. The fighter was sort of in there too after the wizard, and then there was a pretty big drop. But it was also listed as being the least interesting, even though it did have a big choice in school that, like lots of other classes have, that some people call subclass. That's not an official term. But it wasn't a new. It's been there since forever, and lots of D&D editions as well have had those schools.
Yeah.
So we decided... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So one of the most exciting choices I made on my home games wizard was when I got to speak with badgers, and because I was like, wizards, as much as I love them, build very similar to each other. It's all about the spell choice. And so when I saw Arcane Discoveries and I talked to badgers, that's great, and I was happy.
So Param is absolutely right on that. The problem is just once I'm an evoker and Param's an evoker, we're so similar. Sure, in later books we could eventually do a different sub-school, but one of those sub-schools was just drastically more powerful than both the other sub-school and the original, and it was admixture, so then we would both be the same again. And so there would be no variety. So if we're both, say, both an elven wizard or both a human wizard, it's pretty much going to be cookie cutter. So, but then we got back to the idea. We went to the basis. And what are these wizards? When they graduated from their training, wizards are the ones who study arcane magic. That's the magic of material and mental essence. That means that they study the material world using thought, reason, logic. And so when you graduate, you probably had to write something to graduate. Just like a blacksmith makes their master's piece, you probably had to write a thesis. I mean, I did. I had to write a thesis, which I did not finish writing because I left to become a game designer. And that's why I'm not Dr. Mark Seifter. So
what would you name if you were making a wizard's thesis, Mark or Linda? What would you name it?
Well, I would not name it this, but one of the examples in the core rulebook for how you could name it is on the methods of spell interpolation and the genesis of a new understanding of the building blocks of magic.
I learned a lot about the character from knowing that they named their thesis that.
Yep.
I bet they're going to be pretty insufferable.
So that is, as somebody who works in academia, that is really authentic.
Yeah.
I wrote that because as someone who came from academia, I was working on the thesis section, and that sounded like something that someone that I worked with might have done if magic was real.
I don't think I can top that. I'll just go with that as my answer.
But that is in the core rulebook as an example, because we say, like, if you pick that your wizard knows the spell blending, the thesis say that your thesis is not spell blending. Your thesis is on the methods of spell interpolation and the genesis of a new understanding of the building blocks of magic, or some other name that you created. And so, like, it tries to give flavor and sort of why your thesis was different, because a thesis is something you put out there that's not the same way everybody does things. So for spell blending thesis, you theorize that spell slots are a shorthand for an underlying energy that powers all spellcasting. and you found a way to tinker with the hierarchy of spell slots, combining them to fuel more powerful spells. When you make your daily preparations, you can trade 2 spell slots of the same level for a bonus spell slot of up to 2 levels higher than the traded spell slot. You can exchange as many spell slots as you have available. Bonus spell slots must be of a level you can actually cast, and each bonus spell slot must be of a different spell level. You can also trade any one spell slot for 2 additional cantrips. So you cannot trade more than 1 spell slot at a time for additional cantrips in this way. So you can see, especially if you're in academia like Pam or I you can see how someone might name that on the methods of spell interpolation, the genesis of a new understanding of the building blocks of magic.
You just want more excuses to read that sentence again to be proud of it.
Nohar the Shark wonders why would anyone not do that. The answer is because they might have a different thesis.
Right. My wizard in the preview game we got to play at PaizoCon had a thesis where he could swap a prepared spell, and that was and as people that know my version of playing wizards, where they have the Batman utility belt and always equipped with the right spell throughout time. I drooled when I read that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you can just keep switching out your spells, spell substitution. There's also improved familiar attunement, which I talked about on the Paizo Friday stream last Friday. And the last one is metamagical experimentation, where you realize the practice known as metamagic is a holdover for a time long ago when wizards had to work out their own spells and variations rather than rely on spells recorded by others and passed down over the years. This allows you efficient access to various metamagic effects. It gives you a first level metamagic feat as a bonus feat, but starting at 4th level during your daily preparation, well, then you can gain a metamagic wizard feat of your choice that has a level requirement of no more than half your level, which you can use until your next preparation. So
you can just daily switch out your metamagic?
For a half level metamagic of your choice, which also keep in mind that it's not switching the first level one. That thing that starts at 4th level is a second extra feat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, actually now people know all 4 of the wizard theses pretty much in full because Parent described the 4th one and Friday had the other one. So now you know the theses. Multiply that times 9 specializations, which includes Universalist, and you have 36 different ways to play a wizard before you even get into the spells or the ancestry or anything else. Pretty rad. Any other good questions from the chat?
A lot of
so
questions.
many questions. We
Glad
have
you guys
done
are in
less than
charge of
half of
taking
them.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm basically trying to categorize them by value. Sorry, people in chat.
You have been judged.
Expecting. Wandering Monster wants to know how hero points will work in PFS.
So that's not something that we have fully announced, but I think I can talk about that here. So we're planning to have everybody start each session with a hero point, and there will be other ways to gain hero points. One thing that is interesting is that hero points sort of serve multiple functions, both as something that allows you to reroll and something that allows you to prevent death. So if you're looking at circumstances in which we may have given rewards to help prevent your character's death in the past, that may be other places where you might expect to see them drop.
Or when you might have given rerolls in the past.
Or when we might have given rerolls in the past.
Okay. Good, solid, efficient answer.
I think the merch department is about to be very happy.
Woo! Speaking of which, there's some really cool coins that you can get for your hero points.
I know, they look glorious. All right, so I think given the time constraint, I think we should get on to building the PFS character, and that'll give you some opportunities as we go along to point out what has changed with PFS from 1st edition as we build the character. These sound like a plan?
Sounds good to me. And I know there's a lot of questions here that we won't get time for. But on our stream, Arcade and Mark, we do have we are known for letting ourselves get distracted by questions. So
that's
if you'd
true,
like to,
but we might not be allowed to answer questions.
We may not be allowed to answer all these questions.
We're in contact with now, and we might get some official additions for our stream. But we're very careful, even though we work at Paizo, we're not using our access to ourselves and our rules to give additional spoilers for things that you guys don't have yet.
Right. All right.
Would
Yeah.
that extend to if I were to post the questions that didn't get asked to our site or our Discord, would you be able to answer them as like a written continuation of this interview?
Well, if that's the understanding for a No Direction interview that you got from our marketing team, then we sure
We
could.
have never done this before. I just
No.
came up with it now.
All right.
We should talk to marketing folks and see how that works.
Yeah, they probably say yes. We just have to ask first.
Yeah.
Or-
One way or another, I will
Lawful.
hold on to these questions.
Or even if literally we said, hey, there were extra ones from No Direction, can we like put them onto the Saturday show or something like that to get them answered? They might say yes, so we'll figure it out.
It's 9:43 now. How long can we keep you all for?
Oh well, for us it's 3 hours earlier, so
It's
we're gonna be
6:43.
fine. Our stream usually starts in about 17 minutes,
And then it goes
and
for
then it
an
goes
hour
for an
or
hour
two.
to 2 hours. So I would say please no later than that. Please no later than midnight your time, because
Yeah.
we actually didn't eat before this.
Yeah. No, Lord, no.
Okay.
No, we're going to 3 a.m. our time, and you can't stop us.
So Ryan, are you
We
okay
can,
with
we
the
can.
plan?
There's an end call button.
Are you okay? With
Okay,
the plan
technically, there are many ways you can stop us.
Ryan, are you okay with the plan to just keep them as long as they have?
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah, so-
had a plan for a
Wait,
meeting
oh,
with
wait,
you, which we will
hold
get to.
Hold
if we-
on.
Yeah, I
Usual Paizo is on, and so
Oh, yeah, they are.
So we
Okay.
absolutely can answer the questions afterwards or put it onto our Saturday show. So we will get to all of your questions if Ryan and Perrin will collate them. And we will answer them. Probably on our Saturday show so we could go more into detail. Thanks,
Yeah.
Official Paizo. You rock. Whether it's whichever one of you is on there right now. Peyton, Aaron, all the rest. All
Okay.
right.
So while we were talking, I put out a straw poll to let the audience that was watching vote on what ancestry we would build this character. So we'll have complete freedom otherwise, but it seems that they've declared us gnome direction.
Gnome
Oh,
direction.
gnome direction.
Okay.
All right.
Gnome
so
beat
let's build a
everybody
gnome.
by a large
Okay.
margin.
Wow.
Great.
I even voted in the poll, and I voted for half elf.
Okay. Gnome direction.
So we got a gnome. What else do we know about this gnome?
But hold on, let's if we're gonna building a Pathfinder Society character, right?
Mhm.
We should follow the step-by-step process that Mike told us in today's meeting. Vaguely is what we're gonna do anyway.
Yep.
And the first step is, and Linda was leading into it, but I just want to name the steps so that you guys
Okay.
can see and compare it to the Paizo Friday, because a lot of people worry, do I have to do a lot of other steps, extra steps to build a Pathfinder Society character? And the answer is, we'll let you be the judge of that, because you guys, we're going to let you guys make all the decisions, Ryan and Perrin. We did not plan anything ahead of time.
Ooh.
So the first question, Linda was getting into it, we need to make a concept.
Mhm.
And the concept could involve the ancestry. In this case, our concept does, because we know it's a no. In the core rulebook, we say it could be involving your class. Like if you know I want to play Dumbledore or Harry Potter, you know it's probably a wizard. If you say I want to play a blacksmith who becomes a hero, that sort of is your background and how that can lead into your concept. But your concept could also come from a lot of other places. Media, I guess that's the Harry Potter example. It could come from talking to the rest of your group and being like, we're all going to be a bunch of soldiers that retired. And, you know, I was the old team leader and you were I was the medic. And yeah, I was the one who cooked for everybody.
What if we all wanted to be members of the circus?
Yeah, or everyone's members of a circus. So your concept can come from anywhere. And
All right.
that's what we say in the core. But Linda, Pathfinder Society offers a few more ways that you can figure out your concept that you've talked about so far, right?
So we talked about the spell, scroll, swords, or field agent, which is sort of how did you come up through your training in the Pathfinder Society? So are you more focused on the academics and the study? Are you more focused on the magic, or are you more focused on the slash and stab?
And then also
The other one is factions, which
Right.
is why did you join the Pathfinder Society, and what are you kind of hoping to get out of it?
Right. And we're not saying you have to pick all of these. In fact, you shouldn't. But these can all be what gets into your brain and says, I've got to play this. It could also be a rules mechanic. You just read some feat and you're like, I want to build someone who uses that feat. That's an awesome feat.
Mhm.
Or this magic item's picture is rad. I must have Storm Flash Rapier or something like that. Anything can lead to your concept. So do either of you guys have a concept for for your character.
Mhm.
Oh,
All
they
right,
both
I do, and I
but
guess Param, you do as
Para
well.
probably
Yeah,
finger
let's
first.
see. Let's see how they compare it, and then we can pick. between them.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if it's gnome direction, I want an explorer.
Okay.
Okay.
Concept is sort of an explorer. What about yours, Ryan?
My concept was that our gnome was one of 3 gnomes in a trench coat that was pretending to be a human, and the other 2 gnomes died.
Okay.
Okay, so those two concepts are compatible. So we have a
And-
gnome explorer that used to be part of a set of 3 gnomes in a trench coat. But so is that why your gnome is the explorer now? Because you really need to strike out on your own and make your own way. Now 2 trench coat buddies sadly passed.
Yes, like I can see a lot of like inferiority complexes and a lot of abandonment issues, and being part of the society resolves that.
All right. So we've got
Great.
like Ponce de la Gnome or whatever, some kind of explorer who was known under a nom de guerre as a human explorer, but is really actually 3 gnomes and now only 1 gnome and needs to
Yeah,
join
you
the
gotta
society.
get face palm there.
A gnome de guerre.
Yes, that's what I said. A gnome de guerre.
Thank you. I was just making sure it wasn't missed. That was wonderful.
Okay, that was very important. So our concept. That's our concept. We have now completed step 1. Create a concept. This is going to help us decide what we're going to pick in the later steps. All right. So ready for step 2. Start building ability scores. We start with all 10s. All right. We've now completed step 2, but it is my duty to inform you that when we boost them, they will be going up by 2. When we give them a flaw, they'll be going down by 2. All right. So there are only 10 steps to make a Pathfinder Society character. We've done 2 of them already. Step 3, choose an ancestry. Okay, well, we know that the ancestry is a gnome, but that isn't all the decisions that we have to make. When we're choosing an ancestry, we're going to choose also. So first of all, gnomes, much to, I guess, sometimes Ryan's chagrin on certain gnome characters, get a bonus to charisma, as well as constitution, and a penalty and a flaw on strength. So off the gate, your gnome is going to have 8 strength, 12 constitution, 12 charisma. You also get to pick 1 ability score that's not constitution or charisma, because you can't boost the same one twice in the same step, to raise up. So
Well, it's got to be dexterity because he's balancing on another gnome,
on top of the other
balancing a gnome
gnomes.
on his head.
Okay, and explorers need to be able to be nimble on their feet. I think that makes sense. There's also a thing you can do where you take 2 optional flaws and gain another benefit. And let's not do that this time, but you totally could have 8 charisma or con.
You totally could have that option is going to be Pathfinder Society legal.
You heard it here first,
Awesome.
folks.
Mhm.
That will be Pathfinder Society legal. Now, the flaws have to go somewhere that didn't already have a flaw. You couldn't have 6 strength. But you could have, say, 8 strength, 8 intelligence, and 8 dexterity. Not this character. Or you could put 2 flaws into one of the other bonuses or something else. So we've got 12 dexterity, 12 constitution, 12 charisma with 8 strength. Great. We're doing well so far. Now we get to pick our heritage. So we've got several good gnome heritages for an explorer. It turns out that gnomes like to go around doing things. The first is the chameleon gnome that can change the color of their hair and skin, possibly due to latent magic. Slowly change the vibrancy and the exact color, and can more quickly change very minor coloration differences, which can help potentially allow you to blend into your surroundings if you are very close to the colors that are there. The Fey Touch gnome has such strong Fey blood that they get a primal cantrip automatically. The Sensate gnome, sort of all colors are brighter, sounds are richer, smells have more detail, and you basically get an imprecise smell, where normally your smell for him is a vague sense. You can barely tell something smells. Imprecise means you can sort of figure out where it's coming from. The Umbral gnome may have a connection to shadowy Fey, or the Svirfneblin, and that would give you dark vision. And then the Wellspring gnome, and you'll see more of this in Lost Omen's character guide, where there's more information about the different kinds of gnomes that can be born near different fonts of magic. But they are basically connected to a weird font of magic, so they get a cantrip that is not primal, that is arcane or divine or occult. So which one of those sounds more like our explorer once part of the 3 gnomes standing on top of each other?
So I was thinking chameleon, but everyone in chat wants the smelly gnome.
Which gnome? They're also trying to decide which gnome in the trench coat was this.
It was
That's
the middle.
yeah.
It was the one who was always connected to two other people and now has to
Because
stand on his own.
you probably want one of them maybe on the top who you see their face to be chameleon. Maybe the one in the middle who's not so far down, or not to the bottom, has the scent, or maybe that's the bottom one. And one of the ones who's deep under in the dark might need dark vision to make sure, whose feet are on the ground to make sure they don't trip. So
That's good, but we're only building one. The other two
Yeah.
are dead.
yeah, the other
That's
two are dead.
true.
So which one do you guys
Which one do
want?
we have?
You don't have to listen to the chat. You're your own people, but you could.
All right. Well, I've been picturing at the middle gnome. And which one did you suggest for the middle gnome?
Maybe the smelly gnome, which is the one that the chat said.
Okay. Smelly gnome it is.
That's
Okay.
a good. If you're exploring, you stick a stick into the random scat piles to find out what beast was nearby.
All right.
And
There
no,
you
I
go.
got a
what
question
this
about
person-
that, though. So we were describing them as brothers, or I was describing them as brothers. This is
Okay.
very important for his backstory. But you were suggesting that all three of them could be different heritages. Does heritage mean that if we were blood brothers, we could be different heritages? Just
Yes.
like from
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay.
heritage is a rules element. It is distinct from ethnicity, which is a non-rules element. That sometimes an ethnicity might say, like, hey, you know what? The frosty goblin ethnicity that live up in the icy Northlands usually take the cold goblin heritage as one of their most common heritages because they're up there. But you can absolutely make a character of any ethnicity who has any of the heritages. Now, it might be a little weird that all three of these are different, maybe, but they could have been born in different areas if their parents were moving around. And certainly if one of them was a wellspring gnome because they were born like right next to a trapped demon or something and they had divine magic. That wasn't one of the three we were thinking, but it can easily happen, especially with gnomes. I mean, come on. So we've got a sensate gnome, which is what chat wanted after all. And we only have one more thing to do, which is pick an ancestry feat. So our options are animal accomplice to gain a familiar, always popular. Burrow elocutionist, which lets us talk to all burrowing animals just all the time. Fey fellowship, which gives us a large variety of benefits versus Fey, such as perceiving and seeing through their illusions, talking to them, having a good reputation with them even before we start talking to them. First world magic, which gives us another opportunity to get a primal cantrip. Gnome obsession, where we are obsessed with a certain lore skill and we will gain all sorts of information about that lore skill. Gnome weapon familiarity, where we will gain glaives and kukris and uncommon gnome weapons. And then last is illusion sense, where we will gain a bonus against illusions and a free chance when we get near an illusion without interacting with it to figure out what's up.
So now I'm thinking that having access to a little more spells would keep up the illusion and be able to cover for, when the gnomes inside the trenchcoat have to cough or whatever. So that's the one I'm leaning towards. Chat wants animal accomplice, but I feel like that's there's going to be a lot of gnomes with animal accomplices. So I'd rather go with my idea.
All right. That good with you, Param?
That sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
In
So
that
that's
case,
the
we
next
do actually have to pick
Oh,
that
wait a second.
cantrip.
Somebody in chat, Kefal's, the guy whose name I couldn't pronounce earlier, says obsession with human lore so that they could pass as human. I think that's a strong enough argument that I'm going to say that's the better idea.
Okay. So they are obsessed with, so generally human lore is a little bit broad for lore because of the fact that there's so many human cultures, but we can say that they are...
Talden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are obsessed with Talden history. So that they know everything that happened in Talden history. If you drill them, they can whisper it up to the top gnome. It's like, yeah, that was Taldaris who founded the Empire.
Oh,
So-
that would be good if each one had a different obsession of human ethnicity so that they could always
All right.
pass.
So
Okay, yes,
we
nice.
are now obsessed with Talor lore.
Mhm.
All right. So our Talden history lore. So we've selected our ancestry. Everything's done. All right.
That's step 3.
Now step 4. Pick a background. Now we're building a Pathfinder Society character. Now Ryan and Param, have you guys played enough games in any of the seasons to unlock the special in first edition to unlock the special backgrounds that are related to those seasons?
I have not.
That
What?
with the blog. You only
This
need
is a
to play
blog
like
I've missed.
Yeah,
this is
there's
How many
really
is
cool.
it? Just like 5.
5. Yeah, there's a
Five.
There's a
It's easy to play 5.
legacy background blog. There's a background for every season, and you can that by playing 5 times or GMing 5 times in a season, and then you can apply that to your character. So there's a recent blog about legacy backgrounds, and all of those backgrounds will be provided in full in the Pathfinder Society guide.
Yep.
Well,
So, for instance, you could be a Thessalonian specialist based on season 4.
Mm-hmm. Well, I played a lot of Year of the Demon. I GM'd almost everything, so that's probably one. What's the background for Year of the Demon?
I think that was one of them that was in the blog. Maybe. Let's see.
I don't have the full list of them with me.
They're called legacy backgrounds. I will get them, and then I cannot link it because magic. Because Nightbot won't let me. But let's see what we have here. We have the ones that are on here are 1, season 3, season 4, and season 9.
Yes.
So we don't have it on the list of examples, but there will be one, and it will be involving demons, as you suspect. The season 9 is for Faction's Favor. It's the Faction Opportunist. This might be a fairly good one because it can give you guild lore, heraldry lore, mercantile lore to go with your talent and history lore. Thessalonian Delver knows all about Thessalon. The Ruby Phoenix Enthusiast is doing all sorts of martial arts, and the Shadow War Survivor is about season 1's Absalon Shadow War. Also, those are just the extra ones you might have unlocked. There's, of course, a huge number of backgrounds. I read all of them off during the previous stream, so I won't do that again here. But they don't have to be from the Pathfinder Society seasons.
Yeah, those are just some extra ones that we wanted to make sure that people were aware of.
In fact, honestly, if we're an explorer here, then we might be using the scout background. You found trails and guided travelers. The wanderlust could have called you to the adventuring life, or perhaps you served as a scout for soldiers, found you light battle.
There's also an acrobat.
There's an acrobat. Is in a circus or on the streets, you earned your pay by performing as an acrobat.
It could be a charlatan also.
Travel from place to place, peddling false fortunes and snake oil in one town, pretending to be royalty in exile to seduce a wealthy heir in the next. That's true. Or an emissary, acting as a diplomat or messenger.
I'm leaning towards charlatan.
Okay.
Param, I feel like you haven't gotten a whole lot of explorer options in there. So why don't you take this one? Is there a background that speaks to you?
I think scout, because I believe that this is the gnome that was pointed backwards in peeking out the back of the trench coat.
Yeah.
Because the other two need to look forward, but somebody's got to watch their back.
I'll put out that for bad wordplay, there's nomad, traveling far and wide. You pick up basic tactics for surviving on the road and unknown lands.
Nomad.
Yes, nomad. All right. So if we're a scout, then we get either dexterity or wisdom. Maybe dexterity again, since keeping that balance on the gnome. And then any ability boost at all that you want.
Well, I think we should probably start thinking about the class for this character.
Yeah, and you can at any time based on the concept. So we know the concept is an explorer. What are you guys thinking? Is it more of a ranger style?
I was thinking more of a rogue, maybe a bard.
A rogue could be awesome. A bard could be awesome in a different way. If it's a bard, you probably want that other one in charisma. If it's a rogue, you really can do whatever you want because you put up dexterity twice.
Well, we built a primary spellcaster last time, so I'd like to go with the rogue because we built a rogue
at a time before that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for a rogue, then you're in good shape already. I would recommend either be the scoutiest scout ever by taking the other one that was on the list and take wisdom to help you find traps and survive in the wild, or take some constitution for surviving the damage and the bad environments and temperatures of exploring. So those two would make sense to me if you were a scout rogue sort of explorer. Which one do you like? Pick one.
Or charisma.
You could put up charisma again if you're. But
that was the top gnome. The top gnome needed the charisma.
Yeah, that was the charlatan gnome. Ryan's gnome that was the charlatan died.
Let's do wisdom so that they can see better perception.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. We've got some wisdom, so we've got up to 12 wisdom now.
And Scout gives us some extra things in addition to those ability boosts.
So what does it give us, Linda?
Let's see. You are trained in a survival skill as well as a lore skill related to a terrain you've scouted in, such as forest lore or cavern lore. And you
Is there
also
urban lore?
It should be like an out terrain that you've scouted in. So, but you can cavern lore is pretty good if you go underground. Forest lore, mountain lore.
Well, what's around Talden? What kind of?
So Taldor actually has a variety of different terrains. You've got the Verderon Forest on the northwest corner of Taldor, and there's a lot of rivers going through. I think the Tandek Prefecture, so you wind up with plains. There's a little bit of getting more towards desert areas as you're getting closer to the border to Kadira. But still, they build more along the rivers in that region. And also, I'm running more for the crowd with Linda. So
I just loved how you were just rattling off region names like it was nothing.
Yeah. Where did you see our gnome exploring?
Forest lands. Yeah.
Forest?
All right.
Okay.
all right, so you got forest
We've got
lore,
Forest lore, and we've also got the
and you also
Forager.
gain Forager skill feat for free from
Okay,
your-
let's see what that does, because I remember that people in the playtest thought that it did not forage enough.
So now it forages more.
Let us see if it forages enough. While using survival to subsist, if you roll any result worse than a success, you get a success.
Oh.
On a success, you can provide subsistence living for yourself and 4 additional creatures. On a critical success, you could take care of twice as many additional creatures as on a success. Each time your proficiency rank in survival increases beyond trained, double the number of additional creatures you can take care of on a success. To 8 if you're an expert, 16 if you're a master, or 32 if you're legendary. You could choose to take care of half the number of additional creatures and provide a comfortable living instead of simply subsistence living. Multiple smaller creatures or creatures with significantly smaller appetites than a human are counted as a single creature for this feat. And larger creatures or those with significantly greater appetites each count as multiple creatures. The GM determines how much a non-human creature needs to eat.
So you could feed multiple stacks of brother gnomes with just you easily.
Yes.
Yeah, he was clearly the forager. Yeah, this totally makes sense. I like it.
All right. So yeah, just with the success, you could feed yourself and 4 humans, let alone how many gnomes you could feed.
And
so
they're always going to have a success.
Your regular failures and critical failures counts as a normal success. On a real success, where you actually succeeded, that's where you get 4 bonus. So you don't get to double down of like, well, this then becomes a success, which then becomes that special success. But still, it's not that hard, and you have really good forest lore and survival, so you're probably going to succeed. And then you feed 4 additional humans worth. And even if you fail, you still make enough for yourself, and you probably have some left over from the last day because gnomes don't eat that much. So you've selected your background. We're now done with step 4. Step 5, choose a class. We figured that one out.
Yeah. Rogue.
It's
You're a rogue.
Rogue is one of my favorites. That was my Rogue Eidolon Guide to Rogues, one of the first things that I'm famous for doing in the Pathfinder community. So making rogues awesome was something that was important to me. I'm not going to say rogue like Logan said monk, but I did definitely do some things in the rogue overall. A lot of us dealt with the core 4 in a huge way, though, during the alpha. So
now, before Logan gets in any trouble or flack for it, I was very much oversimplifying what he said. He didn't take full claim of the monk.
Logan legitimately did huge percentages of the monk.
Okay.
There's no question that he started the monk. He did almost everything that is in the monk. I'm not trying to say that is not the case.
Okay, good.
I'm just referring back to the beginning to draw viewers in. All right, so we've got a rogue. So that's great that we've selected rogue. We don't have to make all of the decisions yet for rogue. That's in a later step. This is good enough for me, except for one thing I want to know. So are you the ruffian, the scoundrel, or the thief? Let me read them all off to you, and you tell me. I'm thinking thief, but I want you to be able to have all of the choices. Ruffian. You prefer to strong arm or intimidate others rather than rely on finesse or fancy tricks. You might be an enforcer for organized crime, a highway bandit, or a noble who bullies others with threats or your family's power. Or you might use your skills on the up and up in a private security detail or as a guard in a city with the right temperament. You can use whatever tools you have at hand to get the job done. You can use sneak attack damage with any simple weapon in addition to any weapon listed in the sneak attack class feature. When you critically succeed in an attack roll using a simple weapon and the target has the flat-footed condition, unable to focus on defending itself, you also apply the critical specialization effect for the weapon you're wielding. You don't gain these benefits if the weapon has a damage die larger than D8. After applying abilities that alter its damage die size. You're trained in Intimidation and Medium Armor. You can choose Strength as your key ability score. When you gain Light Armor Expertise, you also gain Expert Proficiency in Medium Armor. And when you gain Light Armor Mastery, you also gain Master Proficiency in Medium Armor. Oh, I guess I went ahead of myself. This is your Rogue's Racket, which is described as you started on the path of the Rogue, you began to develop your own style to pursue your illicit activities. Your racket shapes your rogue techniques and the way you approach a job while building your reputation in the criminal underworld for a certain type of work. A client with deep pockets might even hire a team of rogues for a particular heist, each specializing in a different racket, in order to cover all the bases. Choose a rogue's racket. Oh, Linda, why don't you read the Scoundrel? I've been reading too much.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Also, Mark, chat wants you to drink water.
Chat wants me to drink water.
All right.
Yeah.
Well
Okay.
then, while you're doing that, I'll read the
drinking
Scoundrel.
water.
You use fast talking, flattery, and a silver tongue to avoid danger and escape tricky situations. You might be a grifter or a con artist traveling from place to place with a new story or scheme. Your bracket is also ideal for certain reputable professions, like barrister, diplomat, or politician. When you successfully feint, the target is flat-footed against melee attacks you attempt against it until the end of your next turn. On a critical success, the target is flat-footed against all melee attacks until the end of your next turn, not just yours. You're trained in deception and diplomacy. You can choose charisma as your key ability.
And last, sounding a little more like this rogue is the thief. Linda, read that one
Nothing to
too.
beat the thrill of taking something that belongs to someone else, especially if you can do it completely unnoticed. You might be a pickpocket working the streets, a cat burglar sneaking through windows and escaping via rooftops, or a safecracker breaking into the carefully guarded vaults. You might even work as a consultant, testing clients' defenses by trying to steal something precious. When the fight breaks out, you prefer swift, lightweight weapons, and you strike where it hurts. When you attack with a finesse melee weapon, you can add your dexterity modifier to damage rolls instead of your strength modifier. You are trained in thievery.
All right.
So I'm curious why you thought the thief was the better choice, because I'm really leaning towards Scoundrel.
Because Scoundrel was the one you wanted to make who was on the top who died.
Okay.
Right? It was the one who was the charlatan, who was the bard. And
Okay.
all the choices that parents have been making to up decks multiple times have led a little bit more towards the thief. Now, the others could both totally work. And the key about it is, all those other ones that let you choose charisma or strength as a key as ability score, they don't force you to. You could still use dex.
So if
Right now, the high stat is dex.
So if I reached this point in character creation, I realized I wanted to go Scoundrel more than I wanted to go Thief. I could go back and re-pick some of my boosts,
Oh yeah,
right?
totally.
You could easily go back and change, say, that wisdom boost into a second charisma boost, for example. The one that you made during the scout phase. You can change anything at any time. This process is just to help you tell the story of this character and let that story come to life out of the pages into your imagination as you're learning about the character. But if you find that a later decision makes you want to change something, you can. In my example on the blog, where I was building my character Yakovas from Pathfinder First Edition, I liked mountain style so much I almost considered going back and redoing a bunch of the stuff I'd done before to build towards it, but then I decided not to. And I kept my previous choices and went with, I think, Wolf. So you totally can.
So,
And you could even make a ruffian.
So as the middle gnome, I think Thief actually makes a bunch of sense because he can like open a slit in the back of the coat to reach out into a pocket and then pull it back in. Nobody's going to suspect that.
Right.
No,
Plus,
did that guy's stomach just rob me? No.
plus, the middle gnome is the one who has to hand things both up and down the gnome pile at all times and needs to have a lot of manual dexterity, I think. But really, any of these would work well with this concept, and you'll make a good rogue with any of them. So if you are the thief, you have to choose dexterity as your key ability score, which is fine. That was your best stat so far anyway. And since the classes automatically get a bonus boost in their key, you're now at 16 dexterity. And you get to add that to damage, plus getting some extra thievery. We'll go into that, what that does to help us later when we actually make the class decisions. Step 5 is just to choose your class and get your key ability score, which meant we had to choose our racket to figure out what the key ability score was. Now it's step 6. We're going to finish with the ability
Just to confirm,
scores.
are we going with these?
Yeah, that's what
officially.
Karen said.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so we're going to determine ability scores. This is where we're going to finish off the ability scores, and that will help us figure out everything else that we're going to do. So we get 4 more boosts. They have to all be to different abilities. So really pick the 2 that you don't want to boost, or pick the ones you do want to boost, whichever is easier for you. I
Now,
recommend
mechanically
dexterity.
speaking, are we going to be okay with the strength of 8, or should we boost that to a 10?
Well, you just took an ability that lets you add your dexterity modifier to damage rolls instead of your strength modifier by picking thief. You might have the amount of stuff you can carry with 8 strength is legitimately a concern, because we want it to be not really that much of a concern unless you're carrying an absolutely ridiculous amount or you dump strength as much as you can. And in this case, we are about to maybe dump it as much as we can. So it might become a concern, but there are ways around it. For example, there are ways, especially for a rogue, to get around it, and you would be able to do it at first level if we needed to.
But you know what? He was also holding up a note.
Yeah, he's got
to have at least a strength of 10.
He was. So you might even want... So in a later step, we're going to get a skill feat at first level. Nobody else does. There is a skill feat called Hefty Hauler. You can carry more than your frame implies. Increase your maximum and encumbered bulk limits by 2. And so regardless of how much strength you take, you might want that. And that is sort of like 4 strength worth of extra bulk. And with that, you won't have any problems even with 8 strength. But you could take 10, and then you sort of like carrying as much as a 14 strength normally would.
He's got like a Nodwick style backpack on.
Yeah, at that point, sure. So dexterity is your key ability score.
Yeah,
I recommend putting that up.
Bump
But
that
you have
up for
3
sure.
other boosts. Some possible good ones. Constitution is only 12 right now, and rogues are getting the front line a lot, so you might want it. You put up Wisdom before when given your choice of any ability score, so that probably means you like it, and you could put it up again. You've got a little Charisma from the gnome. Intelligence will give you more skills, but you're going to have a lot. You might not need it. Depends on your concept for the character. And Strength, if you do decide to take Hefty Hauler, and there are a lot of tempting skill feats, but if you do, because of the concept of holding up a gnome, you might not need it, but you could take Strength to double down and be able to carry quite a bit more than people expect. So, what do you think?
So I think intelligence is out, right, Param?
Okay.
Yeah,
we
I
don't
see
need
it.
intelligence for this guy.
I mean, he
Alright,
agreed to
so-
be a gnome stack. He's not
Okay,
the
that's a
smartest.
good point. So intelligence is out, so pick one more not to put up.
I feel like our charisma is okay. It's not going to be
With
anything we lean on.
And he was, he was being leaned on, but yeah, he wasn't the face. He was underneath the top gnome, so.
Right.
You could
Alright.
pick intelligence and charisma. Boom.
Yeah.
So you've got 10 strength. You might not even have to take Hefty Hauler if you don't want. You've got 10 strength, 18 dexterity, 14 constitution, 10 intelligence, 14 wisdom, because you just raised that as one of your boosts, and 12 charisma. Pretty solid character. No weaknesses, and pretty significant strength in dexterity. All right. So now we're going to go back to the rogue class and make the choices. And we're going to record the class details. So you picked rogue, the class with the most skills. Congratulations. So you are an expert in perception, reflex, will saves, and trained in fortitude saves. So we would write this down on our sheet at this point. Your
Which I
skills
actually
are...
should be writing down. Darren Caldemeyer in chat was asking if we could release this character at some point as a PDF. So I'm not writing it down, and I'll regret that.
I
but will
remember
have
it.
to go back and
I
listen to
remember
this.
it, so I could probably generate it at the end.
Oh, you know what we could do? We could make a clip out of the audio from our Twitch.
You could. So you're trained in stealth. Because you picked thief, you're trained in thievery as well. And you already were trained in survival from being a scout. So you are now trained in a mere, because of your low intelligence, you're trained in a mere 7 additional skills on top of that.
How many total skills are there?
There's like 16 or so.
Okay,
So there's 6 that we won't be at least trained in.
Let me
If my math
see.
is right.
So, and some of those are lore anyway. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 plus lore. So, yes, of the other ones, there are going to be 6 that you're not trained in. So, let's take a look at which 7 you're going to want. So, acrobatics seems like is a fundamental part of this character. Arcana, maybe shelve it for the maybe list or the no's. Okay. Athletics, in order to be able to lift up that other gnome, is necessary for this concept. Crafting.
Term and I are nodding and shaking our head, which is not good audio. So our
No.
podcast listeners don't know
Okay, so
decisions are being
basically,
made.
yes, anytime I'm going through like that, I watch them all nodding. I'm not just railroading them into these choices. Crafting, that one is one, like being able to make
Maybe
stuff.
that's a maybe.
It's a maybe. We'll leave it
okay.
in a maybe. Okay, so deception
Yes.
and diplomacy.
Yes.
Deception, yes. Diplomacy.
Maybe.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, we got a maybe and a yes.
1.5.
1.5. Well, that's our top contender for runner-up. Well, I'm still
Okay.
taking 3. Intimidation.
No.
No. Okay. Medicine.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
It sounds useful, but it doesn't. It's
Okay.
not thematic.
Nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Nature.
Mhm.
Occultism.
No.
Performance.
Maybe.
All right. Religion.
No.
Society.
Yes.
Yes.
He knows so much about Taldan history. It makes sense. That's 5. All right. And now we can go back to the maybes. The strongest maybe was diplomacy. So I think that was the only one that was a maybe and a yes. So we've got 6.
How many
Now you have to
do we have
pick
left?
one more. Pick one more that was just a maybe from both of you. Or
Was
the
medicine a
chat one.
maybe?
Yeah, medicine
Yeah.
was. Medicine's a
Then
good
yes,
one
medicine.
if you're now on your own and your brothers died, because it can help you patch up. All right, great.
It's also a wisdom-based skill. Doing pretty good. Stuff.
Surprisingly, I was like, you guys don't have any of these other. Why is that? You had picked all 3 of the alphabetically last skills as your starting stealth, survival, and thievery. And so now you have all the skills you just said, plus stealth, survival, and thievery. Great. We're trained in simple weapons, rapier, sap, short bow, and short sword, as well as unarmed attacks, because you have to be able to punch out of your cloak when you're pretending to be a human. Trained in light armor and unarmored defense. And trained in your rogue class DC, in case you're doing some weird rogue trick that the enemy has to roll a saving throw against, or be knocked unconscious or something like that. We also get 8 hit points plus Constitution modifier, plus an additional 8 for being a gnome. So that's going to be 8,
That's nice.
16, plus the Constitution modifier of 2 is going to be 18 hit points, which is pretty solid. You could see that going away pretty fast once something gets a critical hit on you, but you're probably not going to die instantly. I don't see the GM being mean enough to throw something that hits you for 36 damage and triggers the instant kill roll.
Well, we played with Luis at PaizoCon, and
Oh, never mind.
Oh, well, never mind. Cosmo nearly insta-killed a Fumbus who survived because of his 1 fire resistance from his heritage.
Wow.
He was like, oh, wait, it reduced by 1, so it's not twice my hit points, right? It's only 1 less than twice. And Cosmo was like, you're right, you're not dead.
That was this giant custom clown monster.
It was like a clown mammoth that was like an avatar of Cosmo.
It was like beyond that. It was beyond the limit, the suggested limit for encounter difficulty for like even the mega boss encounters. He's like, yeah, sure, you're fighting this because it's the Paizo.
So you get, you're gonna get a few more things. You get sneak attack 1d6. So with your agile and finesse weapons, that's 1d6 more damage. The enemy is flat-footed to you. You also get surprise attack, meaning when you use deception or stealth for initiative, stealth of which we will be using a lot, I think. The enemies who have not acted yet in combat are flat-footed to you. Even if they did notice you coming out, you were just too much of a blur, and you get the drop on them. So, plus, you're going to get to pick not 1, but 2 feats, unlike those other classes that usually pick 1 feat. So you first get a rogue feat. There's only 4, so that can be a little bit easier for us. So Nimble Dodge is a reaction that will basically, when we see that big thing that's about to slam into and maybe get a crit, usually the first attack of the boss or something like that, we react, get 2 extra AC, so that hopefully that's not going to crit or hit. Because, there's 4 chances on the dice that'll help you. 2 if it turns a hit into a miss, 2 if it turns a crit into a regular hit. There's Trap Finder, where that's going to give a bonus on finding traps, AC against traps, and saves against traps, plus you sort of get an automatic chance to find a trap, even if you're not searching. That's very useful if you're always sneaking around rather than searching for traps. You can still sneak around and be like, okay, at this point I stop sneaking and I'm going to check that door. It's very suspicious, and then go back to sneaking. But if you want to be always sneaking and always searching for traps at the same time, Trap Finder is great. Twin Feint lets you use 2 of your actions on the turn to attack once, and then whether you hit or miss on that first attack, the enemy is automatically flat-footed against the second because you try to pull them over to a spot where they've left an opening, which will give you a sneak attack if you need it. And then finally, another reaction, you're next, which you're not going to want because, in fact, you can't take because you're not trained in intimidation. That's where you drop someone, you point to them and say, you're next, and you immediately demoralize them with a bonus.
My playtest rogue used that as their concept.
Okay.
To grab Magnus Farm's clarifying question real quick, these aren't the gnome feats. These are the first level options for rogues.
Yes, these are rogue feats. So which rogue feat do you guys want? Dodgy, trap finding, two weapon, twin feint. It uses 2 weapon fighting. You use one with 1 weapon while the other one comes in on the side and attacks. Or your next, which you can't take. So take one of the other 3.
So I want to read something that Severin Laureate said in chat.
Okay.
He says, I'm imagining the other 2 gnomes died to a swinging blade trap. One blade went for the head, the other the legs, which is why our torso gnome survived. Because this trap would have killed anyone else, just not our hero. And that's why he has trap finding.
Oh, that makes sense. And then they pointed out that that's why they picked up medicine last. If only they could have sewed the brother's head back on. All right, so Trap Finder.
Serious tragic backstory going on for this board.
All right, so
considering
Trap
it's
Finder.
just such a stupid backstory too.
I know. We've got one more choice during this step of the process. Since we are a rogue, we get a skill feat, which nobody else does at first level.
Yeah. Actually, could you concept on like why you all picked up skill feats and why this exists? Because we have yet to talk about this on any of the interviews, podcasts.
So really, this is something that the design team sort of came to learn, I would say, in the latter half of Pathfinder First Edition. The first inklings of it were something that I discovered while really teasing through feedback on the playtest kineticist. And so I pushed forward, and we did it during the Vigilante, and it moved forward into some of our later class design and then into Second Edition, which is this. You can say, oh yeah, you just have more feats and they're all the same kind of thing. And maybe for some types of players, that will work to give you feats, some that like help you for your social encounters, for role-playing, for using your skills, some that help in combat. Maybe if I told Ryan, you get twice as many feats, he would use some of them for social skills. I know how much he likes social skills. But a lot of players feel a pressure to raise their, anytime you give them a feat, to raise their prime contribution towards combat and encounters, and their main class is shtick. And sometimes it's even a pressure that's unwanted, where they're like, I kind of wanted to take this thing, but I feel literally bad, like I'm letting people down if I don't get another Alchemist discovery so I can do Rapid Bomb, Force Bomb. If I hadn't in Curse of the Crimson Throne with my Alchemist, we would have TPK'd, because literally the discovery I took with extra discovery saved us all from an encounter that nobody else could deal with.
2 sessions in a row.
One of them was from the regular discovery, but the other was
Fair
because I wanted another feat for roleplay. I was like, nah, I have to take extra discovery, and I did. So instead of giving people fewer feats or whatever, we can give you lots of feats, and we give some of them in different buckets. And those buckets, it's guilt-free. You can do something to help with the roleplay of your character, to help with skills, and something that's not directly your combat shtick, because it's never not being compared to something that is. Because let's face it, +6 to a skill from skill focus is an obscenely high benefit for a feat, but it is also an incredibly unpopular and weak feat, because it was a skill and it wasn't your main combat thing. You had to give up +1 to hit on your attack roll. And the one that's more disruptive to the game, to be honest, if the skill is important, is actually +6 to the skill, but only when that skill comes up. And the fact that people wouldn't take +6 to a skill in PF1 just sort of shows the same concept, which is you need to put things into buckets that are about what they're about. And so skill feats are about skills. Class feats are the ones that are about your class, because of course people are going to say, do you want to do the one where your wizard is a better wizard, or the one where your wizard knows about nobles? And people are like, well, I want to be a better wizard because I'm a wizard. So we just give you more, and then some of them are in different categories. And that is why we did that. Does that answer your question to your satisfaction, gentlemen?
It does. It actually kind of struck home, because I realized that one of the things I liked about a half-elf in First Edition was that you get skill focus as a bonus feat. But thinking back, I could have taken skill focus as any of my humans, and I never did.
Yep. And it turns out you could have taken 3 skill focuses with an unfair human substitution that traded their feats for 3 skill focuses, which made all half-elves cry. Half-elves were legitimately really good until that got published, and then now what's the point? Because you can take 3 skill focuses instead of the human extra feat.
I don't remember that. What was that from?
Oh, it was early. It was like APG or ARG. One of the earlier ones, yes.
Wow.
You don't get all 3 of them right away, but it's one, and then at 8th level another one, and at 16th level a third one. So it is strictly more than 1 skill focus, assuming that you get to the higher level. Yeah. So, but absolutely what you said about half-elves, and I picked half-elves before that thing came out for the same reason you did, Ryan. I was just like, I wanted the other skill focus. It's cool, but then I never picked it with my humans until I could get 3, and then I did. So that's why we made skill feats. That's why we put things into buckets. It's because it gives you the ability guild free. And you know, some people say, well, it wasn't guild. I just want to have 50 different wizard feats, and maybe they do.
Why are they so aggressive?
Some people are pretty. If you haven't noticed, fans can get pretty aggressive sometimes. That's okay because they're passionate, and that's why the Game Mastery Guide is going to give you variants for getting more stuff. If your group is, because some groups think that the amount we've already chosen today is too much, and some groups want to choose twice as many things. We've tried to build feats so that if you did say, "Hey, take twice as many feats, go nuts," that wouldn't really break the game in the same way it would in Pathfinder First, where the feats were all giving you giant numerical bonuses that stacked with each other. So.
And talking about the skill feats in particular, to what extent does this build out of the skill unlock system and the idea of how? Because in contrast to skill focus, which is about giving you a flat numerical bonus, skill feats are about unlocking different things that you can do with the skills and being better at them in ways that are a lot more dynamic than just I get a higher bonus to my D.
Yeah, it certainly. They certainly were called skill unlock feats at one point in time. So they are an evolution of that from Unchained. Also, Zayas-Palmer found the thing I was talking about is called Focus Study in the Advanced Race Guide for humans. So to move back to our skill feats, you guys have a very, very high number of possible skill feats that you could take because you have a lot of skills. So instead of my reading off all the options, tell me which skill is the most important to give me like 2 or 3 skills that are the most important to this character, and I will tell you which options are associated with those.
I would say stealth and deception.
I would lead stealth.
Okay, so I'll give you stealth and deception. So first of all, general skill feat, assurance. If you guys wanted to make absolutely sure that you never get lower than a 13 in a particular on a particular type of check, and that's going to go up as you level up. It's 13 at first level. Assurance is a good pick. For instance, I could see that being part of that's why our disguise, maybe the guy who died on the top had that to make sure the disguise of being top was always full peasants or people who are weak enough that a 13 was good enough. That is a general skill feat. You could also take skill training if you thought, well, we don't have enough with only 10 out of 16. We did an 11th skill and get another skill. And then we're going to do stealth and deception. So deception, you could be a charming liar, where you can basically just tell lies that butter someone up to try to make them like you more, even though you don't have diplomacy. And you give them useful information. It's like, I've got a tip for you that'll really help you out. And like, oh, wow, you're really cool. You can have lengthy diversion, where you basically create a diversion that really, really distracts people and helps you remain hidden. And you have lie to me. Lie to me is one where you're such a good liar that you've seen a few lies and you can use your deception instead of your perception to try to figure out when somebody else is lying, because you have to be able to talk to them, and you can know how to trick someone else who's lying into contradicting themselves by leading them down a path. So those are the trained deception ones. And for stealth, you can have experienced smuggler, where you're able to sort of conceal things in your outfit and other places more easily. It basically lets you get better underworld lore jobs if you have underworld lore. Also, when you roll your check to see if a passive observer who's not actually patting you down thinks that, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong here, I guess. Oh, you're a giant gnome on top of a gnome. You get your roll or 10, whichever is better. And this eventually becomes even more powerful than that. So you roll and you're like, oh, it was 2. Nope, it was 10 plus my modifier. It's only specifically when nobody's actually searching you and you're just trying to get past passive people to not notice that there's a gnome smuggled in there. And then the next one is Terrain Stalker, also potentially a good one for this character. You would probably pick Forest because you pick a type of terrain, and as long as you're undetected by all creatures other than your allies when you're in that terrain, you can essentially go slowly 5 feet roughly per round, and as long as you don't get within 10 feet of any creature, you just don't have a chance of being spotted until that point because of the woods and the trees are just in the way. This basically allows you to automatically approach creatures to within 15 feet while avoiding their notice, as long as you're in the trees and you have a little time and they're not moving too fast.
So, good options. Like, there's definitely some cool ones for other concepts, but I think we've got to go with Smuggler.
I feel like that's this character.
Yeah, that's not even a no-brainer. Like, I'd feel bad if I picked anything else. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
It gives you better tasks for underworld lore for smuggling because you become known in the underworld for being a smuggler. Okay, so experienced smuggler.
I almost wanted to push for Lie to Me because then the top gnome could say something in my gut tells me this isn't right.
The top gnome may have easily had to weave traps to trip up anyone who's trying to deceive you. All right, so we got experienced smuggler. All right, well, congratulations. We've recorded all the class details. At this point, we buy equipment, which I think we shouldn't do, but you got a weapon, you got your armor. It's probably...
So I would say one thing I would do is go back and maybe switch out diplomacy for underground lore. Or underworld.
Underworld lore? Yeah, you could also switch out the Talor lore if you know the most about the criminal organizations and get it with your free lore from Obsessive, so you don't have to switch out a non-lore skill, but either one works. They both work fine.
Yeah, I think swapping out diplomacy is the better way.
If you do swap the Taldan history lore, it will automatically raise up at multiple levels because of the no Obsessive. At level 2, you go become an expert. At level 7, you become a master. So there is that. But so yeah, having underworld lore will help here. You'll be a really good smuggler. So absolutely.
Yeah, when it comes to gear, so then the question then comes up of, what kind of gear can we select? So generally in Pathfinder Society, particularly for the core rulebook, you're basically going to be looking at any of that common gear. While it's possible, we haven't had the review team go through absolutely everything yet, but generally, if you're looking at common gear, that's going to be available for your characters. And then also Wayfinders, Pathfinders have access to Wayfinders. So if you're a first level character, so you can pick any first or second level items that you want to get because that's generally your level for things that you don't have on a chronicle sheet.
Minimum 2.
But minimum 2. And then if it's on a chronicle sheet, then you get an extra boost, and you can get those chronicle sheet things a little earlier, as long as you haven't become too infamous.
Hey, good news! By picking
you don't start off in.
By picking 10 strength, you have enough strength that you're not taking an armor check penalty from your leather armor.
Nice.
And then you could grab could grab a rapier or something like that for a melee weapon, maybe a backup, maybe a short sword in there, short bow, those kind of things.
Are there also like some kits that are just quick buy kits?
So let's see what the rogue's quick buy kit is. Let's use the rogue kit. The rogue kit says we got leather armor, great. It has a rapier and maybe a dagger, although you could get a short sword if you want. It's better. It has adventurer's pack, climbing kit, a sheath, and optionally a thieves' tools. That sounds like a good option to exercise.
Yeah. Then we would probably just buy a bow or something just for a ranged option.
Yeah, sure.
Now these are like the kits in Alderman equipment?
Yes, except for that they actually, unless we messed up, add up to the correct amount of weight. And, although there is an error where the one of the things that's in there was adventurer's pack, and adventurer's pack has the wrong total bulk. It says it's 2 bulk, but it's actually 1. But the kit that includes the adventurer's pack is correct because it knew that the bulk was supposed to be 1. So that would leave us with
so what you're saying is the class kits are more accurate.
They're more accurate. So this would leave us with about 2 gold pieces and 4 silver to try to buy that bow. That might not be enough, but we could save up for it after our first adventure. And we have about 4 bulk, which easily is within the realm of carrying for a gnome with 10 strength without taking hefty hauler. So we could carry 5 plus 9 light bulk. So we're well within the range. We can purloin a few things too, as long as they're not super heavy and we won't be slowed down. So great, we've got some equipment. The next step, 9, is calculating modifiers. We don't need to do that here. It's just adding up everything that we've done so far. Because up until this point, the only math we had to do was actually calculating the total ability scores. No other math, just story. Now we're going to do all the math. And then finally is step 10. And notice that Pathfinder Society didn't get in our way here. It sort of enriched our options at almost every step. There was something new that we could pick for Pathfinder Society, but we didn't have to if we were new and we weren't familiar and we just wanted to do what we know from the core rulebook. Step 10 is going to have a lot more stuff from Pathfinder Society. So why don't I talk about the ones that aren't Pathfinder Society, and then Linda, there's some big ones for Pathfinder Society here. This is called finishing details stuff. Everything else on your sheet. Your alignment. What alignment is this gnome? I know what.
Not evil.
Oh yeah, and since it's Pathfinder Society, it can't be evil. I know what sense I'm getting from you guys. I want to see what you guys think.
I want to say chaotic neutral, but I play too many chaotic neutral characters.
Your character felt like chaotic neutral to me, but maybe they had a change of heart after the brothers died. I don't know. What do you think,
That's
Tara?
you.
Well, the people that are most compassionate are the people that have experienced loss. So I think maybe he was chaotic neutral and navigated to chaotic good because he doesn't want other people to feel the loss he went through.
That would be chaotic good, because it says good values protecting others from harm, even if it puts them in danger. Evil will exploit others for their own selfish gains, not necessarily like cackling with glee at everyone dying. They just don't care. They don't care about you. They will destroy you to get what they want. So that sounds like good from the description Perrin gave me.
Mm-hmm.
So chaotic good. Then we pick
Mango in chat says it cost him a head and a leg.
Oh. So you pick a deity at this point. Having chosen chaotic good, if you're going for the main deities, Desna and Kid and Killian are both good choices. If you were willing to go to neutral good, I would say that like the Fey Eldest Meg the 3 is actually a fairly good choice because it's 3 creatures that are actually one creature, who is the eldest of prophecy and fate, although she disagrees with Pharasma about how fate works. Or they disagree with Pharasma because they're 3 creatures. They're actually one creature. But that is a lawful neutral eldest, so it's not really a great fit for a chaotic good character.
No, but if we say this character's found religion and they're just dabbling in it, like this is definitely the god that if this character found religion, that would appeal to them. So maybe I don't think their god.
You don't
is
have to
important.
actually pick it now, but
detail.
this is just in finishing details.
Now here's a question: do we need to pick where we're not going to be a divine character? Do we have to pick a god?
You can be your character could be an atheist. You can pick whatever your character worships. You absolutely can. But having a deity could potentially give you access to something that deity's worshippers have. You might want to pick we know you're from Taldor, so that's great already. You want to pick your gender and pronouns. It sounds like you've got he, him pronouns, but is your character male or are you another gender that he, him pronoun?
I think we'll go with male.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you pick an age for gnomes based on the bleaching. That could really be pretty variable, but seems to me probably not all that old of a gnome.
Yeah, I was thinking this guy was a little young.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good. So you have a lot of options there. We would pick that, and that's about it for the core rulebook. But here's where Pathfinder Society gives you guys a few more really cool options.
Time for extra stuff.
Ooh,
So,
yes.
as mentioned before, spell scrolls and swords or field commission. So first of all, did your gnome come up through the standard Pathfinder Society training process, or was your gnome selected for his skill outside of that in some independent mission?
So I would say selected for the skills, but when he was a 3 gnome tower. So they're expecting a human to show up and a gnome shows up instead. He's got some explaining to do. But by then he's got the paperwork, so he's in.
Great. Okay. Well, in that case,
what were you going to
I was gonna go with selected because I just can't imagine the society recruiting a 3-gnome tower.
Have you seen Pathfinder Society? Their recruitment is all over the place.
Hold on, being selected actually means they were scouted and super recruited. If you think that they wouldn't recruit that, then it's more likely that they 3-gnome tower came to petition to the society and trained the normal way. But if you are a field commission, that means that you did some kind of research or something that caught the society's eye.
Well, I just assumed that was what happened after the 3-gnome tower incident, not before.
Yeah. He was a level 3 character at one point.
What was your field commission? Was it on studying ancient Taldan lineages because that's one of your obsessions? Was it some kind of criminal thing that you did? What was it that led the society to say, "Hey, these guys do this obviously Taldan human needs a field commission"?
Yeah, let's say he squealed on a major Taldan underlord.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
he squealed on a major underlord and was able to distinguish himself in that way. And so that means that he has a field commission, so he gets some extra bonus downtime after every adventure. And exactly which field commission you chose, that doesn't have any extra mechanical impact. It's just a cool story thing to say, hey, this is why the Pathfinder Society. So
I even think that maybe they fast tracked it because it's like a witness relocation thing, and that's why they didn't notice that maybe this guy is not human.
Well,
oh yeah, totally.
He's trained in so many different things at once. Like, how does one person know all this?
Wow, this person is quite skilled. Clearly, we need to hire him and only him, which is clearly one human and not a stack of 3 gnomes in a trench coat. So we figured out our training. So now we need to figure out. So there are 6 factions available now, 4 major ones and 2 minor ones. So I'm just going to go
What's
through
the
those real quick.
difference between a major and a minor faction?
Okay, so the 4 major factions, we've made a commitment that those are going to be sticking around for a long time. Those are going to be the main factions. You're going to see scenarios that are focused around the goals and the interests of those factions. And the 4 major factions also are more tied to the sort of the core objectives of the society, whereas the 2 minor factions are taking things in a slightly different direction while still being common character motivators. So I'll start with the 4 majors and then do the 2 minors. So first off, we have the Horizon Hunters, led by fan favorite Calistro Benry, the ex-pirate half-orc venture captain. And the Horizon Hunters is all about exploring new places that no one has ever gone before and looking awesome while doing it. So building a name for yourself, being famous, and being the find things. Other factions we have there's the Grand Archive, led by the Dwarven leader and Prince of a Sky Citadel, who doesn't really feel like doing this whole nobility thing, and he'd much rather be off adventuring and exploring. The Grand Archive values ongoing education, mastery of esoteric lore, and recovering ancient knowledge, and they very much focus on experience in the field rather than sitting around and staring at dusky. Then there is the Envoys Alliance, led by Fola Baroon, who is herself a field commissioned agent, who distinguished herself in the Mwangi Expanse, tamping down on some shady business that the Aspis Consortium was up to. The Envoys Alliance is all about recruiting new agents, rescuing agents who are in distress, and helping to rebuild the society according to principles that care more about the individual agent.
We had a faction like that once. It didn't work out well.
Well, it's some people may notice that similarities to the old Shadow Lodge faction. The Envoys Alliance, as well as one of the minor factions that I'll get into in a moment, the Verdant Wheel, were not on our initial survey of general themes of factions that we put out to the public, but instead we had hey, if you have any other ideas, please recommend this here. And the 2 things that came up over and over again were Shadow Lodge, something like the Shadow Lodge. We need a Pathfinder union. What about caring about the Pathfinders? And Nature faction, real nature faction, concordance doesn't count. We need a nature faction. So those are 2 of the factions that we have directly. So yes, the Envoys Alliance very much came from the idea of, okay, well, we're not going to literally bring back exactly the Shadow Lodge and goodness knows we don't want Grandmaster Torch's baggage moving over into Second Edition. It's much better to shall we say, pass the torch and handle those sorts of things at the last conclusion scenarios of the First Edition campaign. But
are you saying I don't owe Torch a favor anymore?
Yeah, well, you may be to make the determination there.
Okay.
So that's Ogway's Alliance exactly is built from that same cloth, but without sort of that shady underground element to it. And the last major faction is the Vigilant Seal, led by famous Pathfinder who has recently returned from retirement, Eondo Klein. And the motto of the Vigilant Seal is protect, contain, destroy. So the idea is that you're going to be protecting and preserving sites, is what protect refers to. Contain refers to, making sure that all the locks that seal in that ancient evil stay in place so that ancient evil isn't going to erupt and cause issues everywhere. And destroy is, well, you know what? Sometimes the site isn't worth saving, and for the good of the world, you just need to go there and protect something. So that's the Vigilant Seal. Those are the four major factions. We've also got two minor factions. The first minor faction that I'll mention here is Radiant Oath, led by Valais Durant, now an Asimar, if you have heard of this NPC before from past scenarios.
Okay.
Radiant Oath is somewhat similar, I would say, to the Silver Crusade faction in First Edition Pathfinder Society. It has a focus on spreading the cause of good and using the society's resources for good, acting with kindness and compassion, and focusing on the potential for redemption. Valais very much had a very rocky story in which she has had a lot of first-hand experience with evil and the ways that it can corrupt from the outside as well as from within. So that's sort of more of the focus of this faction. But of course, if evil needs punching, and they are
evil always needs punching.
Yeah, evil always needs. Well, sometimes they can be redeemed. But if it's like a demon or a devil, those things, or an undead, then
you can use the old Qadiran greeting, where in Qadira you always embrace close to someone with your hand behind them like this, so that you can stab them in the back if you need to, or otherwise, if they're your friends, keep them close to you.
Useful.
Yeah.
They could stab you in the stomach.
So
as a minor faction, Radiant Oath doesn't have sort of that guarantee that we're going to have stories that are more focused on it. It's more that your character, if you have a character who is working toward the cause of good in whatever way they want to do that, then your character can choose to promote that. So what people are talking about a little bit of the chat is like there's not going to be exclusively forgiveness stories or things like that. There will be some diplomatic ideas with that, but also if you want to focus on punching face.
But mostly, they won't have their own stories necessarily because they're minor. So you decide what you're going to do when you bring the Radiant Oath into your story, and the plot isn't going to mostly tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last faction, another minor faction, the Verdant Wheel, led by the only character who is completely brand new, Urwal, the lizard folk. The lizard folk, he's a really funny character because he's not a venture captain, he's not field commission, he's not anything. He's just this guy who snuck in through Creighton Shane's window one day with a giant stack of Pathfinder Chronicles covered in red ink and said, "Did your agents even go here? This is wrong." And then snuck out the window. So he's the type to be scrawling astrology charts on outside the Grand Lodge in chalk to try to predict new events. The type to sneak into the entomology collection, reorganize everything because it's not particularly properly ordered, and then other people are like, "No, this is why, what?" And then he doesn't answer them, and he just kind of sneaks out. So he's basically this guy who just kind of showed up, and the venture captains are kind of looking at each other, and they're like, "Well, I mean, he seems to be a benevolent influence, so I guess he could stick around. Hey, do you want a field commission?" And he just walks away. And nobody actually knows where this guy is from because he just knows all these esoteric facts about random things. And like everybody's got different theories. So I really like this new NPC, and he's the leader of the new nature faction, Verdant Wheel. And the imagery for Verdant Wheel very much evokes the idea that it's not just about that it's about sort of these cycles of nature. It's about growth, and it's also about decay and destruction when it needs to be. And Orwell very much believes that each person's way of interacting with and preserving nature, that everybody's kind of got their own perspective. So unless your perspective is, I'm going to preserve nature by creating hordes of undead, you can find a place for yourself within the Vertical.
All right, so which one?
I think the Horizon Walkers is the best choice, because if he keeps discovering new places, maybe he'll find one where he has a purpose again.
Oh.
I mean, for an explorer, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Chat had an idea where you might join the Envoys Alliance because it's about protecting and saving someone, saving other agents when they're about to die or in trouble, like the brothers that were dead. But Horizon Hunters seems like a strong choice just from the get-go for the explorer character.
Yeah, Envoys Alliance was my my top choice. I'm not surprised Horizon Hunters was Param's top choice, because it just feels like Envoys Alliance goes with my contribution to the backstory, and Horizon Hunters.
Well, this is very interesting.
It
There's
seems like
two factions that you like.
Actually, I only picked Horizon Hunters so I could make that joke.
Oh, okay. Well, if you did, I'm gonna pretend that you're stuck between two factions.
I like Ryan that, and it almost seemed like we almost made like this bard character that was the top of, like, almost if we'd had more time, we could have had Ryan make the top and Tara made the middle, and the bottom was the one who died. And then you have these two characters you could play together in Pathfinder Society who are brothers who are sad about the third brother.
Totally.
But,
so now when I'm saying faction, this is a really important change from First Edition Pathfinder Society. It's more of a Starfinder Society model for factions, and so I'm going to explain what that means. What that means is that you can choose on a scenario by scenario basis which faction's interests you're championing in that scenario. You do, when you first start out, get a free faction champion boon that lets you say, hey, this is the faction that I'm supporting, but it's pretty cheap with your character resources to pick up another one. So you can decide, like, okay, you know what? You said Envoys Alliance was the one you're. So for your first scenario, maybe
Param said Horizon Hunters. Ryan said Envoys Alliance.
Yeah, but then you said you just saying Horizon Hunters is a joke, so then I was kind of confused. Well, you can pick one for your first scenario, and then after that, you can get some resources, you get a little bit of character resources built up. You can buy another little faction boon there, and then you can kind of alternate off. Okay, now I'm going to be championing Envoys Alliance in this scenario. That sounds more like my thing. In this scenario, I'm going to be championing Horizon Hunters. So you can really divide that out and decide whether you want to be like a faction specialist who rushes all the things in one faction and maybe gets the most powerful rewards in that faction first, or whether you want to be more of a generalist who might have more different options for their for what faction.
So Kitsune Warlock had a question about the way the championing works. Are you guys going to check who's championing what, including minor factions, if you see that one of the minor factions is really popular?
Yes,
could it get promoted?
Exactly. So thank you for the very leading question.
What? Kitsune Warlock asked most of that question.
Okay. Fair enough. Yes, we will know which factions are being championed via reporting. All the reporting sheets will have a place to mark off which faction you champion, and we will absolutely be running that data and looking at it, both from the perspective of if a minor faction may need to get promoted, and also just to get a general sense of which factions are most popular. That can definitely be used as information to give to people who may want to make some sort of faction-based stuff, so that they know, hey, how popular are.
All right, so in the end, which faction champion boon do you guys want to start with? And you can get the other one later.
Let's go with Ryan.
I say Envoys Alliance.
Yeah.
Okay, Envoys Alliance.
All right, so you started off with the Envoys Alliance.
But it does make sense that this character is conflicted, because he's constantly wondering how his brothers would have handled the situation.
That's true. Plus, also, if you Full of a Rune is also from a jungled area, and you're arriving in the forest. So honestly, given that, it sounds almost like maybe you were from Taldor, but you've now got all this scout stuff, you've got all this smuggling, and you've got all this forest and jungle and Envoys Alliance. You might have been even involved in the revolution in Vidrian, where smuggling stuff back and forth among the jungles to help out one of the sides, or any of those sort of weird situations that are going on in forests. And Full of a Rune isn't a half Ekuje who's from around that area.
So if you were in that area helping some operations to clean up shit shop around there, some of the types of operations that she was also involved in, you may have met her through that, and then that may be why she sort of recommended, or why you sort of got recommended for from there, and then it's like, oh, you've already.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right. So I think your character is done. You have everything you need. All the org play stuff was just that mostly was taken up in telling you what the factions were, to be honest. There is a lot of communication back and forth between the org play team and the design team to make sure that this time, unlike Pathfinder First Edition to some extent, that it would be smooth and similar to just building a character normally, and that Pathfinder Society would give you more opportunities. There's all sorts of different cool points that you're going to gain as you level up, but that's not something you need to know for building for your first game. That's something that once you have the points, then you can start looking at how to spend them. So for your first game, you build it much the same way, a few small additional details that can enrich your character's story, not much that you have to look up or learn. And so we want it to be as close as possible while still giving all the cool things you come to expect from organized play.
I also have to say, of the 3 characters that we've built in the Road to Pathfinder Second Edition, this is the one that we had the fewest ideas for going into it, and came up with I'm just going to say the worst idea. There is no business that this character should exist, but the fact that every step of the way, either Explorer or the surviving gnome of 3 gnomes in a trench coat informed our decision, and we still came up with a character that sounds mechanically sound and fun to play.
I mean,
blows my mind.
Some of the chat, they're starting to feel sympathetic to this character by the end of this.
Oh, he is a very sympathetic character.
Yeah, totally. No Heart asked for what's his name?
So we've got 2. I've got 2 names picked out. One of them was Chorso Test, but then because we've got underworld lore, someone earlier mentioned that World was the head gnome. And Lore is their last name, so he was literally underworld lore the whole time.
He was underworld lore.
Yeah,
but
so he would be Chorso lore.
And Chorso Test is because of Torso Chest with the switch.
That is 100% what I did, yes.
Oh, yes. You got it. So Chorso Test lore?
Oh, yeah. Chorso Test could be just one long, elaborate gnome.
Oh, yeah, Chorso Test. Because male gnomes typically pick names that have a lot of syllables in them. Whereas female gnomes like Lini or Trig is another female gnome, and they're usually shorter. So Chorso Test, like Zarzuket is one of the sample male gnome names in Pathfinder 1. So Chorso Test could be a name. Chorso Test lore.
I like it.
All right.
This came together.
Okay.
Well, you know what? This is an example of yes and.
Well, yes. There's a little bit of improvisation, but also I feel like that we really worked hard in the all the designers in designing the game to be like this, especially Jason, and reorganizing the introduction to make it friendlier to new players for something like this. We all worked really hard to make sure that you could tell a story about a character, just having fun, making choices, learn as you go along, and come out the other end with, this is a mechanically solid character, you guys. It's got 18 dexterity. With the 14 in Constitution and Wisdom, we've got survivability and the other stats.
It's a survivable character.
We're well-rounded.
He's a well-rounded character. He's going to notice traps. He's got all sorts of skills and different ways to contribute. He's got an interesting backstory.
Our rapier hits for a d6 plus 4 or 2d6 plus 4 on a sneak attack. That is an astounding amount of damage. And we've got tons of skills. Like, this is a great character. And yes, we built it from an absolutely absurd starting point. So,
you know what? If Pathfinder Society didn't support creative character ideas,
I like how you call it creative.
Then we would be in trouble.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. The only thing we have to decide now, Param, is this your character or mine when we?
This is yours. This has got to be yours.
I just think that if Param plays this one, and then you make the charlatan bard who is world lore, who is the one that was on top, and then you could play them as brothers.
So in terms of what this character's number will be, you don't need, if your organized play number is your organized play number, you don't need a new one for second edition. It's just going to be, so it's your first character, so that will be -2001 for your first character. It just starts with that little 200 to show that it is a second edition character.
Interesting.
I like that you've given me room for 100 PFS characters.
They've given you room.
PFS
999 PFS characters.
Well,
but there's room for 1,000.
Only 699 because when you get to 7, you got to go Starfinder.
Well, the Starfinder starts with a 7 after the dash, whereas this starts with a 2 after the dash.
Oh.
So you do have the space for 999 characters if you hypothetically wanted to. And that's actually why Starfinder started with a 7 rather than a 2, because at the time we were playing this, we knew the second edition was going to happen, and we reserved that.
So it's 2001, 2002, right?
Yeah.
And in theory, if people wind up needing more than 1,000 characters without just doing it to try to screw things up, like, the 3s could be given. But let's be honest, I love this new edition. I think you guys, and I hope you guys are going to love it too and play the heck out of it. But the number of days in the year, the number of hours in the day, I just don't think you're going to actually play more than 1,000 characters.
You get the 600 if you did 2 games a year, pretty easy.
2 games a year?
With some weekends off.
Or you mean 2 games
a day all year?
2 games a day.
With
yes,
some weekends off.
2 games a day, and each one was with a different character.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not that many first level scenarios. You'd have to play all the repeatables.
Yeah, you would just keep
so many times.
There are repeatables. Starting off right from the beginning, one of the Gen Con scenarios is
Sorry, Linda, can you restart that? I think your mic was mute. It was
people say that our mic is going in and out a little bit. We do have it on a very low gain because we've been popping.
Okay, so yeah. What was it? What was I saying?
One of the Gen Con repeatables.
Oh, yeah, one of the Gen Con scenarios, 101, the Absalom Initiation, is a repeatable that's coming out right from the beginning. It's a tier 1 to 4 repeatable. And we also have our first quest that'll be coming out right around that time as well. The Sandstone Secret is a repeatable quest, and it's got a lot of, both of those have a lot of elements to help to enhance repeatability, replayability, where there's things that are customizable in each. And the quest is one that I wrote, so I'm pretty happy with how that one turned out. And the repeatable adventure was by Liz Liddell, and she always does amazing work, and I'm really happy with how that turned out as well. I mean, really, I'm proud of what we're going to be bringing to Gen Con in terms of the adventures. We've got a lot of good variety and a lot of good options. I think.
So then I've got a new Gen Con goal of making this character and playing one of those 2 repeatables, so that then when I come back from Gen Con, I can GM it.
Awesome.
Nice.
Or just play it again and again, twice a day for 600 days.
And the Absalom Initiation in particular, if you want to get a chance to meet some faction leaders we've been talking about, that's going to be a good one.
Makes
sense. Most of that cut out. Sorry, Linda, I didn't understand.
Oh, I said the Absalom Initiation in particular, 101, the repeatable, is going to be a good place to learn more about some of these faction leaders.
Yeah, so you could have a chance to meet them, and if you decide, oh wow, I really actually like the Horizon Hunters person, even though we didn't go with that, you could add that on as another faction.
Now, personally, as a player, I really want to know more about the Verdant Wheel, but doesn't feel like that's appropriate.
This might not be the right one. Yeah.
I just am really excited about Urwal, because Urwal is a character that came up with creatively and dynamically as of an organized play meeting when we knew we had to have something. And we also figured, like, let's have someone who is of an ancestry that we haven't done before. We also knew at this point that lizard folk were going to be coming out as a playable ancestry in one of the upcoming world guides. So the idea that we could try to showcase that. I mean, I know that people were joking. It's like, oh, yeah, you didn't try to make it a Leshy. And I'm like, no, that's a little too on the nose for the nature faction.
I was pushing for an Aruxi because of the fact that I am also the design liaison on the world guide, the first few world guides, and so I had been doing world guide too. I was like, there's all this cool lizard folk stuff, and we could have one as a faction leader.
All right, well, it's getting late. Tech's starting to fail on us, so I think that's a good place to wrap it up. But where can people find out more about you? And once I get you this list of questions, where can people get their answers? Because we had a great active chat tonight, and we've never had this many missed questions in one episode.
So then we are, our stream, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays is twitch.tv/Mark Seifter. That's Arcane Mark. And very specifically, with permission from official Paizo in this chat, Saturday's episode is going to do before we do the actual topic, and maybe in place if there's too many questions, I don't know how many this is going to be.
There's
when
so
Ryan
many
and Karen get them
questions. They
together.
kept asking questions.
We are going to first field those questions as we start the episode on this Saturday at 10 Pacific, which is 1 p.m. Eastern. On that,
I think we are going to have No Direction continued. The chat questions.
Yeah,
our whole topic
we possibly will.
So let's also.
But we also have
the Discord.
Yeah, we have a Discord that is a great community that is available. We have, let me see. So while I figure out what our Discord link is again, it's a really easy to remember one
It's
too.
like .gg/.
It's an invite.gg link that is, yeah, it is literally invite.gg/arcademark.
Yeah.
So that is an invite to our Discord, and you're all welcome to join. It's a pretty nice place. People are pretty chill and don't get too mean.
And we have way too many sub channels, and
Yes.
we keep adding more.
Well, people asked for more, so we added more. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at Mark Seifter, or we made an Arcade Mark account that is at arcade_mark. That is also on there.
And that Twitter account literally we created yesterday evening, so it's just getting started.
Yep, that's for official Arcade Mark business. And I have a Facebook page at Mark Seifter Game Designer, all one word. That is basically a Facebook fan page about me. And those are our overall internet stuff. But I would say the Discord is the best way to chat with us on a regular basis. It's more active than the other ones. And then the best way to talk with us overall is come to the Twitch channels. They're lots of fun. We have a really great community and some really really cool folks that also sometimes donate subscriptions, and we'll get you those. They might help you find that squirrel and that leshy that people keep putting into the chat, or this magic card. So it's a pretty cool place, and we hope you'll be.
The chat has now been spammed by Arcade Mark emojis.
We hope you'll join us.
And the Pride Flying Leshy.
Oh yes, we have the Pride Leshy, which is a really cool looking combo that people are doing. And Nitrace says that they're clearly all evil, but that's not true. Nitrace may be evil, but has a heart of gold. All right, so that's how you can find us. So find us and come on Saturday for those extra questions.
Great. So thanks again. This was just a ton of fun. It was also super informative. And I think just an amazing demonstration of what you can do with the 2E character creation system.
Before we do a sign off, I want to do, well, Adam Daigle asked me to do a shout out, and I kind of believe in the cause.
I have a stack of shout outs. I figured we'd transition to a shout out section.
Oh, yeah, but let's do it without dismissing our guests, because I don't want to I don't want to rebuild this display for 5 minutes of shout outs.
All right, you guys don't mind just hanging out for 5 minutes of
Oh,
silence?
I'm
We're happy to hear shout outs, as long as they're not like mean shout outs.
Shout out to death.
No!
Wow! I thought we were done talking about your gnome character's tragic backstory.
I was going to say, my gnome character would not be possible without a lot of death.
Shout out to despair.
All right, sorry. That was actually a very terrible note to transition on, Param. Do you want me to do the first shout out?
Go for it.
Okay, so I was hoping to review this in this episode. We don't have time, but I'm going to give a shout out to Chronicles of Legend. It is the very last Pathfinder player companion, and it knows it. It embraces it, and a lot of the options in here are just... It's almost like just the legacy of Pathfinder, and even 3.5, because there's some prestige classes in here that remind me very much of the 3.5 prestige philosophy. There's a... what was it called? There's a prestige class that has my attention. A first edition prestige class at this time when we're 2 weeks from second edition. It's fascinating that this book exists and is as interesting to me as possible. I think people should get it just for its note in history, but it's also it's a solid book with like a nice variety of options, and it's kind of, the theme is like it could be anything, but it also is very flavorful in that it's about storytellers across Galarian, so it manages to both be super generic and super specific. Like I don't know how the player companion team managed to pull off such just a fun, effective product.
I have heard
And
nothing
Luis is in
but
chat, so I'm going to give a specific shout out to him. I picked it up because of the last time he was on the show, and I am super glad I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't heard nothing but great things about this book. So I want to shout out to a documentary and slash charity project that's going on right now that Adam Daigle pointed out to me. It's Let's Play Dungeons and Dragons Behind Bars. Let me read his quote for why he believes in this, because I think it's kind of sums it up very well. Adam Daigle says, as gamers, we all know or have heard plenty of stories about how playing RPGs have helped us in our lives. No matter what your thoughts are on the criminal justice system, being incarcerated is supposed to be about rehabilitation. I feel strongly that playing RPGs can be an aid to that rehabilitation, and it's been shown that the social aspects of gaming have helped reduce chances of recidivism among those released. These are some of the things that this filmmaker, Elizabeth DeClaire, is highlighting in this documentary while giving a voice to the voiceless. And if you do remember a piece that she was involved with, the piece that Vice ran on this subject last year, and those people were playing actually Pathfinder, and there's some definite, I feel there's definitely some issues with our penal system. And I think that role-playing games is an important and useful tool. And so I think that this documentary will be fascinating. And there are also some charity opportunities associated with it. So go check that out if you think it's something. It's a Kickstarter right now for the documentary. And see if it's something you'd be interested in supporting.
Yeah, it looks like it's about a quarter of the way funded. Wow, it actually just went up with 27 days to go. So there's a good chance, but it could still use people's support because it hasn't funded yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do recommend checking out the chat. I do recommend checking out the Vice article. It's fascinating, and it might, and I want to see more of that story.
And on less serious notes, I've got a couple more shout-outs. One of them is to Jason Liu. Jason Liu is a comic artist. He is the artist and writer and more or less like the unofficial subject of The Pitiful Human Lizard, which is a comic that's been put out and recently concluded. And now he just announced today that he is going to be doing the art on a Comixology original series called Afterlift, with writer Chip Zdarsky, who's written for Spider-Man, Daredevil, and is known for Sex Criminals. So, Lou and I go way back. He was Loop on the old G.I. Joe message boards that I used to hang out on, and he's from Toronto. He's a friend of mine, and I look forward to his next project because he is also a talented artist and someone who is really effective at creating like backgrounds with personality, like a really immersive world, just through his ability to do backgrounds with interesting colors and designs. So this is a major new project for him. So just as a shout out and a congratulations to him, you can check out Afterlift on Comixology. I don't have the release date, although I probably can find it if I go to this IO9 article. That, you know what, I'll just link the IO9 article in chat and people will be able to find a link in the show notes. And finally, Boss Fight Studios, my favorite action figure suppliers, the people that made the blanks that I am turning into a Xavier Sabat action figure. They recently got the Flash Gordon and the Phantom license. And so this is still a small company that's on the rise. And so anytime that they get a license like this, they've also got the, Sam & Max, the video game license, and they've got the Bucky O'Hare license. And they've got the Legends of Luchador license. So they are slowly establishing themselves as not just makers of awesome action figures, but also a very professional company that can be trusted with other companies' IPs. So this was a major step for them going forward, and I look forward to seeing those action figures and seeing this studio continue to succeed in this realm. And that's it for me. So until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.
Thanks for having us on, guys. This is a lot of fun.
Good to be on the show.